Can we start with the Pledge of Allegiance?
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you all for coming out tonight. I have a brief opening comment to make. Now better?
Yes.
Sorry.
But everyone needs to stop talking.
So, pursuant to the Second Class Township Code, this is a lawful special meeting by the Board of Supervisors with proper notice provided under the Sunshine Act. As this is an official meeting, I want to remind everyone.
They can't hear you in the back, they're yelling.
Can you turn it up any?
Turn it up. Kenny would be better to have it.
I have one up here. I'll stand there. Can you hear me better? So, I'll start over. Pursuant to the Second Class Township Code, this is a lawful special meeting of the Board of Supervisors with proper notice provided under the Sunshine Act. As this is an official meeting, I wanted to remind everyone that this meeting is subject to the guidelines outlined in the Newberry Township Public Meeting Policy, which is available on the website. Under Public Meeting Policy, I wanted to highlight a few critical provisions for this meeting. Citizens offering to make public comments shall add their names to the sign-in sheet provided at all public meetings. Did everyone see the sign-up sheet at the door? Did everyone get a chance that wants to speak, sign up?
No.
Okay, well, everyone that wants to speak, get your name and address on the sign-up sheet. Only residents and taxpayers of the township are provided the right to publicly address the board during public comment periods. Although the board may, in its discretion, permit non-residents or non-taxpayers to provide public comment. Citizens shall speak only once on a topic until all other citizens identified to speak on the topic are heard. At a citizen's request, the board's approval, a speaker may readdress a topic. The board may exercise discretion in permitting or limiting readdressing. The board determines how much time to allocate to public comment after considering factors to include, but not limited to, the number of citizens offering to comment, the length of the agenda, or the length of the meeting time. The board may choose to use a timer to set a predetermined length of time to ensure fair access to the public comment by all identified speakers. And we will have time clock tonight, is that correct? So for tonight's meeting, each citizen shall be provided 3 minutes to speak. You will be giving a 30-second warning and then asked to stop at the end of 3 minutes. You can, after everyone else makes comments, if you want to speak again, you can go back up and speak again. You will notice that we have one of our officers here tonight in the event there are any disruptions. I do hope we do have a calm, orderly, and respectful discussion this evening. However, if that is not the case, we will then follow a proper procedure to stop the interrupting behavior, which can include potential prosecution for violating the law. With that out of the way tonight, you will hear from PFM and York Water Company and anything else that residents want to address. And I want to remind, I heard something earlier from someone that this whole process started, the township, we invited PFM to pursue the sale. We weren't solicited by PFM on this whole process.
Sir, there's 15 people outside.
Can they hear me?
I don't know.
I mean, there was room for them to come in here.
Yeah, we're fire department, 150 people. Putting the meetings together bigger place.
Bigger area.
How long do you have a bigger place?
With that being said, PFM will now present their presentation. One more thing. I know everyone, most people here aren't happy about this process. These people were asked by us, PFM was asked to provide, to find a bidder for us. York Water was identified as a qualified bidder. Just please, whether you agree with what they have to say or not, treat them with respect that you would want, you know, if one of your family members spoken to. That's all I ask. Thank you.
All right, well, good evening. Again, Scott Shear with PFM. So there are handouts. So I will be going over the handout that has the yellow and the blue writing on it. It will also be up on the TV as well. For this evening, what we want to do, we're going to go through our presentation first, kind of go through some of the highlights of the process that the board and the township has done to date, why the township was pursuing, or at least trying to explore this opportunity, a little bit about the use of the funds, or at least the preliminary use of the funds, and I will stress, so this process has been going on since early 2022. If the board does decide at a later date to move forward with the sale, there will be about a year time frame to really have a lot more public discussions about the final use of the proceeds. So what we're talking about tonight is a template, it's a framework and a path. It's not set in stone, and we're gonna go through these slides and talk about that a little bit more, but I just want everyone to know that what we're showing here as far as potential uses of the funds has not been voted on by the board, obviously, and there will be a lot more public process to come if the board chooses to go that way. Then, after I'm finished, York Water Company will present some information about their firm, about their company, the history, why they had interest in the system, their view of Newberry's system, talk a little bit about the capital needs that they see, and then also a little bit more about rates, future rates as well. We will be talking about that too. And then we will open it up for question and answers for both PFM and York Water, and just general questions. So with that, first maybe start out with the team. So again, this was not an individual or one firm moving this forward. This was definitely a team approach. Obviously, the township was very instrumental in this from an administration standpoint. We have Tony Miller, manager, and Brent Zeiters, wastewater treatment coordinator, as well as a lot of the time and effort that the board has put into this exploration process as well. We have the township solicitor, who's also here, James Sanders, the township engineer, Bill Rooney from Bologna. I'm not sure if he's in the audience anywhere or not, and then Garrett Moore and myself. So again, this was definitely a team effort with all the different expertise, legal, engineering, financial, to help make sure we're looking at all different aspects of this as the township explores the opportunity. Next slide. So as far as why the township is exploring the sale, so we have a little pinwheel on the right-hand side, but at a high level, kind of just like the water side, the township decided to partner with an investor-owned utility on the water side many years ago. This is kind of the same concept, partnering with an outside company that is able to bear more resources, has the kind of the bandwidth to handle all the challenges currently as well as going forward as well. The system has been run very well to date, and we'll talk about that. There are obviously capital needs of the system. Whether the township keeps the system or sells the system, there's clearly capital and investments that need to be made in. But again, the township looking for a partner to move this forward at a cost-effective manner, again, to be able to spread cost around a bigger rate base. Also allows township officials to focus more on other core or essential needs of the township. Right now, the township does spend a fair amount of time, township administration, on sewer-related items. So again, this will allow them to focus on other aspects of running the township, and then ultimately to provide for kind of a very financially solvent township going forward and provide for a good quality of life for the residents. And then again, we'll talk more about this, but right now and historically, when you look at the financials of the township, they have been running deficits, have not been able to do a lot of the initiatives that they wanted to do, more or less kind of going paycheck to paycheck, not being able to do everything that was kind of in their purview to do. So again, we're going to hit on the different things on the right-hand side as far as possible uses or other reasons why. Again, help mitigate the need for future tax increases, focus on other core governments, partnering, as I mentioned, with an established utility provider. One thing we're going to talk more about is establishing a rate stabilization fund or a customer benefit fund. So there has been preliminary discussions to look at putting some amount of money aside if the sale moves forward to help subsidize the rates of the sewer users. And then there will be general proceeds that will be used to generate substantial investment earnings to be used for various capital needs of the township and for other budget initiatives and to pay off all the township debt. So as far as kind of the highlights of this transaction, so what we're looking to sell, or at least exploring and seeing what kind of interest is out there, is the township sewer system. And that's comprised of the wastewater treatment plant that treats a portion of the township residents as well as some of Goldsboro Borough. There are 12 pump stations that are included in this, all the underground service lines, and all the rights and obligations of all its various contracts and municipal agreements. So that's kind of what we're talking about, and that's all laid out in the documents, the bidding documents that were drafted during this bidding process. What is not being sold is what we call the Township's Act 537 plan. And basically that will stay with the township, and that's what the township will have to continue to do and keep up to date when it comes to connecting new users to the system. It basically has control of the economic development within the township. So that stays with the township. That is not being sold. No employees will lose their job. They will all be offered employment by the buyer, subject to their normal hiring process, screening process. And again, like the water rates that many of the residents pay, those rates, just like the wastewater rates, if the township decides to sell, would be governed and controlled by the Pennsylvania PUC. As far as a high-level overview of the timeline, so as I mentioned, this started back in early 2022. The yellow circles on this timeline represent the public meetings where different action was taken. The blue lines, or the blue circles, were just kind of other milestone dates and events that occurred throughout this process. And there were some other, these were just kind of some of the key ones, but there were other meetings obviously throughout this process as well. But if we start from the left and go over to the right, again, January of 2022 was when the board approved the solicitor to draft an RFP to start looking at this process to procure ultimately what was our firm. In February is when we came in, February of 2022, and did our initial presentation. In May 17th is when we went through the process. We had to do our own due diligence, came up with our own preliminary evaluation of the system, and presented that to the board. And then later in May, we were approved to move forward actually with the procurement process. So the initial aspect of our due diligence was just to make sure we had a good handle on the assets, what that preliminary evaluation was, to see if it even made sense or not to move forward with this extensive process. So then the board did decide to move forward on May 24th. We then released an RFQ, a request for qualifications, June of last year. So we sent this RFQ to about 150 or so different market participants across the nation, those that we know have interest in this kind of asset. We received the results of that RFQ back on July 18th. And then at the end of July is when we gave the public presentation to the board. We then shortlisted a few of the bidders those that submitted the bid. And when we say we shortlisted them, we then allowed them to have access to all the data that we had. And then we brought them into Newberry at the end of August to conduct what we call management meetings, where we would sit down with them and kind of go through sort of the financial aspect, the business aspect of the system, And then they also went on tour of the pump stations and the treatment plant to get the better knows for the township, to get to know the prospective bidders more, and for the prospective bidders to get to know the asset of the township as well. So then basically from September of last year until spring of this year is when the team was doing still a lot of due diligence. We were doing our own due diligence, drafting documents, and doing a lot of analyses. The pre-qualified bidders were doing extensive analysis as well. And then in February of this year is when the board authorized us to release the request for bid, or the RFP. So basically when we sent out the RFP, it was the same exact document that the various pre-qualified bidders, they all had access to the same exact information. They were all bidding on the same exact document so that we could be able to compare apples to apples and report back to the board. So in March of this year is when we released the RFP, and then we received the RFP results May 11th and had our initial presentation at the end of May. So again, those were kind of the highlights of the process. Because of the kind of the complexity of this asset, of this kind of system, it takes a while for the township team to understand exactly what's going on from an engineering standpoint, from a financial, from a legal, and then also it takes the bidders quite a bit of time as well to make sure they're up to speed so they can do their due diligence and put in what they perceive as a good bid as well. So that's what's transpired here to date. Gary, if you can go to the next page. So the summary of the results, and we presented this at one of the prior public meetings, but at a high level, you see the 3 different companies that submitted. So we have a bid from Aqua, from Pennsylvania American, and then from York Water Company. So it's important to note that the purchase price, so we're going to be talking throughout the presentation about purchase price and also about indicative or estimated rates. The purchase price that the bidders submitted, that's binding. That will not change. The indicative rates that the bidders have submitted and what we've been presenting, those are subject to change. So the rates are ultimately governed by the PUC. So the investor-owned utilities, companies like York Water, Aqua, Pennsylvania American, they can go request what kind of rate change that they're looking to the PUC. But ultimately, again, it's up to the PUC to make their changes to it and ultimately award what the PUC deems as appropriate from a rate increase perspective. And we'll hear more about it from York Water Company as well. But Aqua had bid $32.5 million, PA American bid $48 million. York Water Company submitted 2 bids, one for $53 million and one for $30 million, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. We also asked for bids with a guaranteed 2-year rate freeze, meaning the rates would not change from the current rates for at least 2 years. York Water Company, they submitted their proposal based on that 2-year rate freeze, and we'll show more projections. So again, from the kind of going through that whole exploration process and the due diligence, the ultimate bids came in here ranging basically from the 30 million and change up to 53 million, the high bid being from York Water Company. The next slide looks at the indicative rates, and here we just put the various projections from all the different bidders kind of side by side, so you can see where they all shake out between Aquas and Pennsylvania Americans and York Water. Basically, what this is showing is of the 3 different companies that submitted their bids, York Water Company's rates were the lower of the various bidders. So York Water Company had the highest purchase price, but they also had the lowest overall indicative rates. And again, we'll be able to.
What color is each? Because I can't read it from here. I don't have it.
Aqua is the green line, and both the solid green and the dotted line. Pennsylvania American is the yellow line, and then York Water Company is the 2 different shades of blue, one being dotted and one being solid. Yep. Garrett, next slide, please. So if the township decided to move forward, now here's where we start looking at the potential use of proceeds and what kind of dollar amounts the township will have to redeploy here township-wide. So on the left-hand side, And this is assuming the York water bid of $53 million. So on the left-hand side, we have the sources that we're going to start with, which would be the purchase price of $53 million. There is also about $8.5 million of cash on hand, sewer cash on hand, that will become available at closing as well. So basically, we're looking at about $61.5 million that the township will be able to redeploy at closing. And again, if this transaction would move forward, the closing would occur probably at the earliest a year from now. So there's a lot of work that needs to get done going through the PUC process. So it's not, it wouldn't close next month. It really will take a year or even longer to get to closing. So on the day of closing, we would have to pay off the sewer debt, about $1.5 million, pay off other township liabilities and the transaction fees related to this, which were estimated about $3.4 million for that line item. So total uses at closing would be about $4.9 million, which leaves the township a little over $56 million to then redeploy as they see fit after public meetings would occur. So starting with that premise of basically $56 million, we get to the next slide of what are some of the potential use of those proceeds. And again, knowing these are potential, these are preliminary, the board has not had any real public discussion about this, only because we need to get through this process first and then ultimately see if the township wants to move forward with the sale. So a couple of the main items. Number one, elimination of township debt obligations. So the township does have other debt that would be paid off early on, and that's about $4 million, so the township would then be debt-free. Obviously, there'd be no more sewer debt, but then there'd be no other debt related to the township as well. Also fund pension and OPEB liabilities. So I think we all know what pension liabilities are. OPEB are other post-employment benefits, which is basically retiree health care. So we want to make sure those plans are funded and that they're at levels that make sense. That's something that we would spend a lot of time with the township's actuary to make sure we have all the numbers correct, but basically looking to fund those various liabilities. And so what happens when, obviously if you pay off debt, there's going to be freed up expenses in the budget. If you pay off or fund pension and OPEB liabilities, that also reduces expense line items in the budget that the township can then utilize for other items, which we'll talk a little bit more about. Another concept that we've talked a little bit about is establishing this customer benefit fund or rate stabilization fund. So there could be a substantial amount of money that the township would put in that fund, and right now, well, you'll see in the slide later on in here that we're assuming $11 million of the sale proceeds would go into this customer benefit fund that would be used to subsidize the sewer rates maybe for the next 15 or 20 years, depending on the various models that we're using, and ultimately if the township decides they want to do that, how much they want to fund, and again, what assumptions. So there is a good chunk of those proceeds that would be there solely just for the sewer users to help mitigate any future rate increases that would come down the line. Then there would be a substantial amount in general reserves, and in that general reserve, there would be kind of sub-accounts that would be kind of earmarked for facilities and major equipment, fire services, parks, open space, stormwater, and other transportation-related projects. Obviously, a lot of road paving, no more of the chip and tar, but actually doing it, kind of the real paving. So the way, again, this would work, and we'll get more into this in the slides, is we're going to be paying off liabilities or funding liabilities. That's going to free up money in the budget, and then with a substantial amount of money being put in reserves, and these reserves are meant to be in perpetuity. So they're not going to be depleted 5 years from now or 20 years from now. As far as everything from the general reserve down, there would be legislation approved by the township that we'll talk about that does a very good job of keeping that money around for, again, a very, very long time. And the interest earnings off of those funds would be used to fund capital needs in those various areas or other things that the township may do within their budget. And so this slide here kind of recaps, highlights what I just mentioned, that based on there's two main buckets. There's the savings bucket by paying off the debt and funding the pensions and the OPEB liabilities. By doing that, that's going to save the township about $880,000 a year, again, by reducing or eliminating the debt and the debt service related to that, as well as the ongoing annual obligations with the MMO, or the pensions and the OPEB. Then the other bullet point where it says approximately 1.1 million of annual interest earnings, that again, substantial amount of money put in these reserves for these capital needs of the township-wide projects, open space, parks funding, road paving, whatever it may be. Assuming a conservative interest rate, that's going to generate about $1.1 million. So we're looking in total of about a positive impact of about $2 million on an annual basis. So it's not a one-time, but it's ongoing, again, for a very, very long time that the township will be able to use. And so to put that $2 million in context on how that kind of compares to the township's current budget, if we just look at the taxes that are currently levied, currently the budgeted real estate tax for 2023 generates about $2.1 million. The realty transfer tax is about $325,000. The earned income tax generates about $2.19 million, and about $173,000 for local service tax. So those total taxes, not including the fire tax, generate about $4.8 million annually. And so again, the annual benefit, financial benefit to the township, if the board does decide to move forward with this, is about $2 million, or about 40% of the overall taxes that are levied. So again, this is meant to be kind of a very, very long-term investment into the township, and these funds are meant to last a very long time to be able to continue to do these projects and enhance the township. Gary, next slide. So just to dive a little bit deeper into sort of those two buckets that I mentioned about the savings and the investment earnings. So eliminating the township's debt, almost $300,000 of annual budgetary savings, funding the pensions, about $550,000 of annual savings, and then funding the township's OPEB liability, about $50,000 or so of annual budgetary savings. And that's what gets us close to that $880,000, $900,000 of annual benefit by paying off and reducing those liabilities. Then as far as the investment earnings and the reserves that are being set up, again, the main intention is to be used for capital needs, but it can be used for other items that the board deems appropriate. Based on the 3% interest earnings, again, that's going to generate over $1 million. We're estimating $1.1 million. Today, if the township had that money, it'd be closer to $2 million instead of $1.1 million. So again, we're conservatively estimating what that interest income would be on an annual basis. And the key thing is these funds will be here for generations to come in perpetuity. The board, if they decide to move forward with the sale, will then ultimately entertain a resolution or legislation on kind of how to safeguard that money. And so there's ideas out there that your solicitor has that will protect that as legally possible. So we ran kind of a lot of models to show kind of the financial impact to this. But one of the key things that we also wanted to do was to illustrate that if the township keeps the system, the rates will be going up as well. So we feel that that is important to look at as well. Rates are going to be going up if the township sells the system, but if the township keeps the system, again, rates will be going up too. And so here, this just shows the kind of estimated quarterly rates going out about 10 years. Right now, the quarterly rate is about 100.
Pamphlets? You got more pamphlets?
No.
Yeah.
No.
To be, yeah.
So the current rates right now, the current quarterly rates are about $149 a quarter. And so by the end of the term, basically on 2033, we're showing quarterly sewer rates about $215.
Their projection.
And these projections assume that the township will be investing in capital into the system to the tune of about $9 or $10 million over this time horizon. So again, it's a very capital intensive asset. The next decade, we're looking at around $9 million going into the system. If the system is held longer, there will be even more investments needed. But again, this just gives you an idea that the rates will be going from projections from about $149 per quarter up to about $215 per quarter. So to give you an idea of the customer benefit fund that I mentioned.
Scott, can you hold on? Could you please, everyone be quiet so everyone can hear him speak? You were doing really well for the rest of the presentation. All this information is on the township website that you can print out also. Okay, good, Scott, go ahead.
So
Is this online that we can bring it up on our phones?
It's on the website.
It's on the website, correct?
It's not on there yet. You just give this out like,
That's right, I know.
what time do you do it?
if it's not on the website, it will be on the website.
Right, tomorrow morning.
So here's an example of the customer benefit fund. So if at closing, the township would decide to put $11 million aside, and I'm not saying this is what they would do, this is just an example, that this fund right now, based on various estimates, would last about 20 years. And so what this is showing is the red line is what the rates would look like if the township kept the system. The yellow line is an estimate of what the rates could look like under York Water ownership. And even though this is a 20-year fund, this one here, we're only just going out 10 years just to make things not so small. The blue line then is basically what the net rate would look like after the annual subsidy that the sewer users would receive. So you're seeing in the green bars, in 2026, the sewer users will roughly receive about a $281 subsidy for that year. The next year, about $149. Out in 2032 and 33, we're looking at about $488 for that year, $420, $352. So again, this large chunk of money will be put into that fund, and then on an annual basis would be basically rebated back. Some amount would be rebated back to the sewer users, again, to help subsidize those rates over, again, a long period of time to kind of gradually get those up to where York Water rates would be at that point in time. So over that time period, the average user would realize about a $4,000 benefit over that 20-year period with the subsidy. So the other thing that we wanted to highlight were some of the benefits and considerations of a potential sale of the township's wastewater system. So on the left-hand side in the blue, some of the benefits. So we have a cash infusion into the township that can be used for the benefit of both township residents overall, as well as specifically to just the sewer users. So the township has that right, the ability to have those discussions to see how they want to allocate those funds. Number two, overall efficiencies, selling to an experienced operator who has the resources to effectively and efficiently manage more of the mandates and consent orders coming down the pipe. Risk mitigation eliminates the township's risk of future state or federal mandates being enacted that would be costly or burdensome, and also administrative relief, again, allow the township to focus on other responsibilities. Some of the considerations on the right-hand side, loss of local control. So a concern that a sale of the system would result in a far-off company running Newberry Township's system. And we'll have some points on the next slide that kind of explains these a little bit more. Increase in the sewer rates. A concern that the sale of the system will prove to be more costly to the township residents, and we'll talk more about that. Loss of township employees. Concern that the dedicated long-time employees of the system will not have a job. Quality of service concerns. Concern that another company will not have the same quality of care as if Newberry Township kept the system. And then loss of local accountability, concern that in the event something goes wrong, residents will not have the ability to address their concerns or frustrations with the appropriate persons or bodies. So then the next slide, we kind of pick each one of those considerations and we look at them a little bit closer. And again, we're going to hear some more about this once York Water Company speaks. But as far as loss of local control, so York Water Company, as its name has been located downtown York for over 200 years. So very close by, 13 miles, 20 minutes away from York. So again, a very close company. Increase in the sewer rates. Yes, it is projected that the rates will be higher with an investor-owned utility, and even with York Water, with their estimates, with the capital that they foresee putting in the system. And again, we'll hear a little bit more about that. But we feel that the Customer Benefit Fund will do a very good job in mitigating those rate increases for a long time. Loss of township employees that was stipulated in the agreement that the bidders were bidding on, where all the employees were going to be required well, they were all offered employment, again, up to, in this case, York Water Company's hiring or their screening process. And it's important to note that, you know, the employees, and again, York Water will speak about this, about how important the employees are and how valuable they are and why they would want them to come over to the company. Quality of service concerns, again, York Water Company is very heavily regulated by the PUC, so we'll hear a little bit more about that. And then loss of local accountability, again, York Water is very close, office is staffed normal daytime business hours and emergency 24/7 as well. So estimated timeline going forward. So this evening we have our town hall. The board could consider this tomorrow night, or they could consider it at their July 25th meeting as whether or not they want to proceed or not with this transaction. If they did decide to proceed, then as we have there, the closing would occur about 12 to 15 months after that vote. So in closing, before I turn it over to York Water, you know, again, the team went through a very thorough exploration process, did the due diligence, put the bid out to market participants across the country. The board has spent a lot of time looking at this information, the administration and the rest of the team, obviously the pre-qualified bidders, and ultimately York Water Company has spent a lot of time on this. With the purchase price of $53 million, I believe the goals and the various ideas that the township have could be accomplished with that purchase price. Some of the key components, as we talked about, obviously York Water is very local, which you know has a lot of benefits related to it. The future rates would be set by the PUC, just like the residents' current water rates are, again governed by the Pennsylvania PUC. And again, these funds would be used not for short-term fixes, but meant to be here for very long-term in perpetuity, both to benefit the township residents all across the township, as well as mentioned, specifically the Customer Benefit Fund would be solely there for the sewer users as well for a very long time. So with that, I will turn it over to York Water Company, and then after that, we will open it up for Q&A.
I might ask for it back though. So let's everybody stretch their legs real quick. I know that was kind of a long presentation. Go ahead and stretch your legs out just a little bit. Good evening, everyone. My name is JT Hand, and I have the privilege of being the president and CEO of the York Water Company. And I want to just commend all of you for the manner in which you have attended tonight and for the way that you have behaved this evening. I know it's early. I know it's early. I thought it was the second row I had to worry about. But it really is a credit to all of you, and it is so important to this process that you are here tonight. So I really do commend you for how you have engaged in this process. You may not like everything you've heard tonight, You may not agree with everything you hear tonight, but the opportunity to have civil discourse in a township like Newberry is uncommon in today's day and age, so you're to be commended. As I said, my name is JT Hand. I am the 22nd president and CEO of the York Water Company in the company's 207 years of history. And I'm joined tonight in the front row by Alex Shiratini, who is the York Water Company's Chief Administrative Officer and General Counsel, by Matt Poff, who is the company's Chief Financial Officer, and by Vaughn Wenger, who is the Superintendent of all of our wastewater operations. If the township decides to move forward with this transaction, the York Water Company is looking for partnerships. That's the way we do business. We do business as partners, communicating transparently, openly, and often. That's the only way these transactions work, is when there's communication. If the township decides to move forward with this transaction, I am absolutely sensitive to the fact that many of you, maybe all of you, will be my customers. And I'm very sensitive to how you are treated through this process so that when you are customers of the York Water Company, you are similarly treated with the respect you deserve as a ratepayer of the York Water Company. I know you're anxious to get to your public comments, so I'm going to go through my presentation relatively quickly to give you a chance at the microphone. I apologize if the slides are, maybe some of the fonts are a little bit small. I'm sorry, I didn't know we were going to have this set up, so I'll try to explain it as I go through. And if you could just go to that next slide there. I'm going to read this for you because you may not be able to see it in the back, and clearly the ones that are outside the door cannot see it. I start with the mission statement of the York Water Company, which is, the York Water Company is committed to providing our customers safe, dependable, high-quality water, wastewater, related services that meet or exceed customer expectations, reasonable rates, an environment encouraging dedicated employees to achieve their highest standards of performance while ensuring a fair return for our shareholders. We've got a three-legged stool up there. Those are just three of our stakeholders. We have a lot of stakeholders. Obviously, the township has a lot of stakeholders. But the three stakeholders that support our stool is the communities that we serve, the customers that we serve, and the shareholders that invest in our company. Together, they form the foundation of our stool. We have other stakeholders. The employees of a company are our stakeholders. The natural environment is a stakeholder. All of the individual communities and all of the elected officials of those communities and all of our regulators are all stakeholders of the company. And we work hard every single day to balance the need of all of our stakeholders, recognizing that what's good for one is not necessarily always good for the other. But in balance, you can take care of all your stakeholders. I bring up these two side-by-side pictures and kind of the title there, The Importance of Place. We are the York Water Company. For those of you who came tonight thinking that you were going to be addressed by a multinational corporation doing business out of France, I'm here to tell you we are the York Water Company. We're the oldest continuously operating business in all of York County. Nobody has been in business longer than the York Water Company. We have been in business for 207 years. For 207 years, we've been serving the needs of our communities. For 207 years. We're the longest continuously paying taxpayer in all of York County. No one has paid taxes longer than the York Water Company. There are churches who have been in existence, but they are not businesses, and churches do not pay taxes. I know there is a concern amongst many of you about losing local control, not having a local presence. As has already been suggested, Our downtown York headquarters is 13 miles away. It's where my office is. It's where Matt's office is. It's where Alex's office is. And it's where Vaughn is dispatched out of. It's 13 miles. I know it's not next door, but we are a local company governed by local leadership and have been. We are very proud. We are an investor-owned utility, and I know that gives some of you pause. Some of you have pause that we are an investor-owned utility and that we are beholden solely to our investors. That is not true. We do have the distinction of having the longest consecutive dividend streak of any corporation in the United States of America. The whole country. No one has issued dividends to our investors longer than the York Water Company. For 207 years. We are founded by frugal Dutch, who started our company to respond to a community need in 1816 that they did not know how they were going to put out fires that were consuming Yorktown at the time. It was local leadership that jumped in at that time to take responsibility to form this company to respond to a community need. And we have been responding to a community need for 207 years. Place absolutely matters to us, and we're very, very proud to be part of the York community. Just for context, in York County, and I know that's really hard to see, and I apologize for that, the outline there is York County. So if you're familiar with the geography, the outline is York County. And if you see everything there in the blue, that is our territory. That's where the Public Utility Commission allows us to serve, authorizes us to serve in York County. We currently serve a total of 53 different municipalities across 3 counties in South Central Pennsylvania. But it's 53 municipalities that we serve. And all that services basically starts in York, Pennsylvania. You can see as you get up towards Newbury Township, we have the ever so slightest slice of water service already in Newbury Township. Very slight, but we have managed to cross the border. The rest of the services as displayed up there. And these slides will be available if the board wants them to be available. Obviously, we'll provide them. You can post them after the meeting this evening so you can have a chance to go into a little bit more detail. Talk about customer service and the importance of customer service. And again, I apologize for that chart over on the right corner there. So I'm just going to walk you through it, okay? The higher it is, the worse it is. The higher the chart, the worse the chart. Way down in the lower left corner, there's a number that says 0.0%. 0.0% is the complaint rate of formal complaints levied against the York Water Company per 1,000 customers that we serve. We have the lowest customer complaint rate of any of the regulated utilities in Pennsylvania. The lowest of any of them, compared to the average, which is that higher bar there, of a little bit over 12%. Why? Because we are local, because we are present, because we are in downtown York, because any customer that wants to talk to the president and CEO of the utility can walk through our door and have a conversation with me. You will not find that if you talk to Comcast. You will not find that if you talk to the gas company. You will not find that if you talk to the electric company. But you will find that with the York Water Company. And we welcome you to come talk to us. The other reason is because of our rate structure. And we're going to talk about that a little bit more as we get down. We do offer our customers low-income assistance programs to help offset the rates for both their water and their wastewater services. We are staffed in downtown York, physically staffed in downtown York, where you can talk to a human being, either face-to-face or on the phone, if you have a question about your utility service, and you can transact your business either face-to-face or remotely if you choose. As I said, we are local, 24/7 operations, emergency dispatch, and it all does start in York, Pennsylvania. I know experience is important to all of you. I'm going to give a shout out to the existing team, okay? To the existing team of employees from the township who have been running the system. They've been doing a good job. They should be very, very proud of themselves. They should,
Keep it in their hands.
they should be proud of themselves. What the York Water Company does, it multiplies upon that. It is a multiplier upon the experience that they have and what they've done for your system. We bring the additional resources, the additional competencies, the additional staff, the additional contract, and the additional capital to help make sure that utility service is available for the township and all of the customers of the township, not just today, but for multi-generational opportunity. We currently operate 11 wastewater systems. We're supported by a team of in-house and contract engineers. Everything that we do is basically monitored through our supervisory control and data acquisition network. So remote monitoring, digital technology, using technology to help us improve the efficiency of all of our systems. We have similar systems to the Newberry Township system, and specifically the intermunicipal agreements which are in place right now between Newberry, Goldsboro, NISA. We have similar situations already in place, so we're very, very familiar with how those bulk interconnects work and the contractual obligations and responsibilities for all those contracts. As I said, we are very familiar with the current operation of the system and how it works. As far as asset management, we have a 1% strategy. 1%. That is, we replace 1% of our assets every year. That's 1% of the pipe, that's 1% of the pumps, that's 1% of the services, 1% every year. So what does that mean? That's a 100-year life cycle, right? It's a 100-year life cycle if you think about it. That investment, it takes capital. It takes capital, and the older the system, the more capital it takes. And that's one of the challenges with the existing system. It's not that the system is not fine today. It is that the capital is not available today to take care of the future needs based upon the current regulatory environment and the degradation of the assets in a very, very harsh wastewater environment. So I'm going to use this roof as an example. A lot of homeowners here. Many of you have had to put a new roof on. And maybe you put a new roof on 10 years ago. And maybe you thought that that roof was going to last you 20 years. And you were hoping it was going to last you for 20 years. That's the Newberry system. The Newberry system was installed and is starting to show its wear and tear. And the challenge is that even though if you look at the balance sheet today for Newberry, you think that it's solvent for the next 25 years or whatever that might be, the challenge is you haven't put enough money aside to take care of the roof. 10 years ago you put the roof on, and every month you have not been putting the money aside so that 20 years later you can replace the roof. And the assets of the township need to be replaced. And the cost to replace those assets in 2023 and beyond dollars is much higher than what the cost was when the roof was first put on 10 years ago. So you are underfunded in the capital side to be able to take care of the demands of the system. And that is a challenge. One just very, very small example, and you can't really see it up here, and it's the Grandview pumping station. Very small. Anybody live next to the Grandview pumping station? Okay, there you go. Fantastic. So that Grandview system, 33 years old, put in ground 33 years ago. It's got an auto dialer with it. So the auto dialer helps to tell when there's an alarm or an issue with that pumping station. The pumps that run that, the grinders that run that, replacing that pumping station, It is fully depreciated today. To replace that pumping station is $175,000. $175,000 to replace that pumping station. You have 12 of those. And unfortunately, the capital does not exist right now in your reserve to be able to take care of those pumping stations. Not to mention the lines, the pipes, and the treatment plant itself. And that is really the challenge that the township's going to have. Talking about capital investment. You see up on the right-hand side, it's hard to see the ASCE, American Society of Civil Engineers, infrastructure report card for wastewater. This is across the entire United States of America. We as Americans are at a D+ for our investment in wastewater infrastructure. You see this and you hear this all the time. Whether you're driving down the road, whether you're using municipal services, whether you're a customer of electric or gas or anyone else, whether you're driving across the bridges, you know that we are challenged on infrastructure because there's just never enough money. On the wastewater side, we are rated as a nation at a D+. From the York Water Company perspective, what are we doing about that? We are investing in our infrastructure. We're investing in our infrastructure to make sure it's available for the next generation of customers. You see that 2023 investment of $60 million. That's $60 million of investment across our 53 municipalities for our 80,000 water and wastewater connections. That is the cost of capital that's necessary to make sure that we can take it from a D+, and the York Water Company systems are at an A. There's a cost to do that. I understand that. There's a cost. But there's also assurance behind that the utility will be available when you need it. We focus on resiliency, redundancy, reliability, and sustainability. What does that mean? That means no single point of failure. One example of an existing single point of failure, I'm going to go back to that pumping station. For the gentleman that lives next to the pumping station, how often has the backup power generator kicked on for that pumping station? Hasn't kicked on because there isn't one. There is no backup power generation at that pumping station or any of the other pumping stations. Actually, I take that back. I think one of them does have a backup generator. That's a single point of failure. You lose power, you lose that pumping station, which isn't a big deal in a short time. But if you lose power for a long period of time, that pumping station is going to fail. All of our pumping stations have backup power generation to ensure we have no single points of failure. That's just one very, very small example. I don't want to bore you with the capital improvements that we've done throughout our facilities across our entire footprint. Again, suffice it to say that for this system, Newbury Township system, the estimate is $1.5 to $2.5 million in additional capital every year for the next 5 years, and that's just for the next 5 years. And that's based upon the company's initial assessment. $1.5 to $2.5 million capital investment each year to start bringing the system up to necessary wastewater standards. It is a significant investment, and we have the capacity to be able to do that. We have the technology and the expertise to be able to do that. I know this is a slide that you really want to see. I know this is it. This is the crux of the situation, right? And so for the folks in the back, can you see that, or is it too small? Okay. So I'm gonna, if you don't mind, I'm gonna kind of talk down through the slide. Top left corner, coming on down, year 1, year 2. It should show. Year 1, year 2 is $596. That's your rate for the first 2 years. As Scott mentioned, our bid held the rates for 2 years. So we guaranteed holding the rates for those 2 years. The other bidders did not do that. The York Water Company did. Year 3, $894, $894, then it goes to $1162, all the way out to year 9, year 10, $1522.
$600 now a year.
This is based upon, again, these are what we call, originally it was kind of commented, these are indicative rates. Indicative rates, this is based upon our projections and some assumptions, as well as the rate strategy for the company. Recall that it is not the York Water Company that sets our rates. York Water does not set our rates. It is the Pennsylvania Public Utility Commission that sets our rates. And that rate setting practice is a regulated, open, publicly accessible process. No different than any of you that are currently water customers of any of the regulated utilities in Pennsylvania. It is the same process on wastewater as it is for water. It's interesting to note, in the Public Utility Commission, the York Water Company holds tariff number 1 from the Pennsylvania Public Utility Commission. We were the first regulated utility, I'm not saying we wanted to be, but we were the first regulated utility in the state of Pennsylvania by the Pennsylvania Public Utility Commission. So we hold tariff number 1. And we have been responsive to the Public Utility Commission ever since. We've also been bound to the Public Utility Commission and lots of other regulators ever since. And I know this is way too small, and I apologize for that. Again, slides, if the board wants them to be available, they'll be available on the webpage. I just want you to look at the blue and the red. As has been discussed previously, and it's public information, it's out on the data site, you're very fortunate that you haven't had a rate increase in 11 years. I want you to think about what if you had? What if you had? What if you had been putting that money aside every year to replace the roof? What if you've been putting that aside every year? What would it have cost you to put aside every year, and what would your rate structure be? And what I'm showing here is that if you were to presume 3% inflation per year, and you might want to call it 2.4 or 5.7, or last year was 7.6. So pick a number. We just threw 3% per year. If you were to pick 3% per year, and you were to look across at that red line and the green line, the red line is the rate that you'd be paying today with 3% inflation going back to since you have not had a rate increase. And the green line, all the way over on the right, is what the proposed rate structure would be of those indicative rates. Again, you have not had a rate increase in 11 years, but you also have not put the necessary capital aside to be able to take care of the roof when the roof has to be replaced. And that is the challenge with maintaining the rates without basically putting the money aside to be able to take care of the future capital investment. I know there's a lot of concern about the employees of the township and what's going to happen to the employees of the township. The York Water Company will absolutely take care of the employees of the township if that's what the employees of the township want. If the employees of the township want to come work for the York Water Company, they have a job with the York Water Company, and we want them to come work for the York Water Company. It's the way we transact business. It's the way we want to embrace the experience that they have to bring them onto our team, to make us a better team, and for us to give them opportunities to advance in a larger company. If they don't want to come join the York Water Company team, we're not forcing them to join the York Water Company team. We do have scheduled a conversation tomorrow with one of the employees, just to have a conversation with him and explain to him what the benefit could be to join the York Water Company and what the culture of the company looks like. And that conversation will happen with Vaughn Wenger, who's the superintendent, who ultimately would be that employee's boss, if the employee wants to do that. But we will take care of any employees that want to come work for the York Water Company. Our people are our greatest asset. Talk about those stakeholders. Our employees are our greatest asset. 116 employees. We are a very efficient company. 116 employees, 96% of whom live in York County, Pennsylvania. 96% of our employees live in York County, Pennsylvania. Their families live in York County, Pennsylvania, multi-generational in York County, Pennsylvania. So we know these communities. We take care of our employees because our employees take care of us and take care of all of you. They are the ones who are in the street. They are the ones on the other side of the phone when you have a question or a concern about your customer experience. They are the ones who are planning for the capital replacement strategy for the company. Our employees are tremendous assets to our company and to the communities in which we serve. And finally, the York Water Company. We like to say at the York Water Company, we aren't just part of the York community, we are the York Water. We are the York community. The investments that we make in York County, Pennsylvania, through our charitable donations, through representation on nonprofit boards of directors, through our presence, as goes York, so too goes the York Water Company. As I said, we have been here for 207 years. We think that after 207 years, we just about have the recipe right. And we look forward to our 4th century of service, 100 years from now, and ensuring that our utility, all of our equipment, all of our systems are ready to take care of not only you and your generation, but the next generation and the next generation and the next generation. We are in this for the long haul, not simply for this immediate transaction. And with that, I'll go ahead and sit down. Thank you very much. I really appreciate your time and attention.
All right, I want to thank everyone. That went very well. We're open for public comment now. Where's our microphone for public comment? Okay. Forgive me if I mispronounce anyone's name. Steve Gover, 85 Byron Nelson. Steve? Everyone that comes up, please state your name and address before you start. Thanks.
You're welcome. Good job.
A couple of questions. Son?
Couple of questions. As far as when you sell the facilities, are people going to be forced? Okay, it's only as good as it works.
You gotta hold it up to your mouth.
When they sell the facilities, are people going to be forced to go on to sewer? Are they going to be forced to go on to sewer? In other words, if they've got a septic tank, are they going to have to be hooked? Because I know that happened, I think, in Fair.
Yep.
So,
That is absolutely not true. 100% not true. The township controls where sewer is extended to.
Okay.
The York Water Company, if we sign an agreement with them, they can't just randomly, and correct me if I say anything wrong, they can't just randomly say, hey, we're gonna run sewer here. We have to request that through our Act 537 plan. So that is absolutely cannot happen.
Okay. I guess on your contracts here, why is only one bidder here? And why? And it's the one that's the highest bid, right? The 53 million.
We interviewed the top 2 bidders, and from the interview that we had with both bidders, we deemed York Water Company the best bid.
Okay, so they've already been selected.
They've been, if we decide,
I can maybe add a little bit. So as I mentioned before, so during the process, we had all the pre-qualified bidding teams come into the township, and representatives of the board and the team met with them and kind of had the preliminary interviews at that time. Then once the bid was sent out and the responses were received, as mentioned, then we brought in the top 2 to meet again with the board. And we were looking at the best overall bid package, not necessarily the highest purchase price, but the best overall package. And that's based on location, purchase price, indicative rates. So as mentioned, the top 2 then were then interviewed again, and based on that, if the township decided they wanted to proceed, the York Water Company would be the purchaser that they would go with if they decided they wanted to proceed. So
Okay, so when it's voted on, then it would be for York Water Company.
correct, presumably, again, I mean, the township has not definitively made up their mind in any way, shape, or form, but as the process unfolded and we had our most recent kind of post-bid interviews, the leaning was towards the York Water Company based on all the information today.
So an award decision has already happened, so it's just a matter.
Yeah, and the key, again, the key with this is it was the highest purchase price with the lowest overall indicative rates. So we looked at all the different aspects of the bid proposal.
It's already sold. Why the hell?
It's a two-step process, and they've already passed the bypass the first step.
Can I say one thing? We as a group unanimously picked York Water Company because of their reputation. And their rate, and if you want to believe that or not, but it's the truth. We picked them for their reputation, and the other company, which I think they named, had put their rate up. I think Fairview used them, and their rates went up.
And what's the current value of the sewer system? The purchasing it?
Scott, you can answer that.
Yeah, so we did our initial preliminary evaluation that came in lower than that. Now, if the township decides they want to move forward, then there will need to be two independent valuations done, one by the township, one by the York Water Company, and depending on the outcome of that, so that's a very important part of the process that goes before the PUC. So, not to get too much into the weeds in the process, but once those two valuations are done by the buyer and the seller, they're basically averaged together. And then the PUC and all their advocacy groups, which is a lot of them, that are here to protect the ratepayers, they will do their own analyses of those valuations and decide if they hold or if they need to be reduced. And that's ultimately then going through, kind of skipping a lot of steps, that's what they would then say to York Water Company that, okay, your bid stands at 53 million that the township will get. However, the PUC may say, well, based on the valuations that were done, only 50 million will be allowed to be recouped over time. And so that's all done during this year-long process with the PUC. So there will need to be two valuations, both by the seller and by the buyer, to basically validate that purchase price.
Because the reason they're asking that question, government contract, independent government cost estimate, and what would be the value of the
30
sewer
seconds.
system. So if you've got two bidders that are bidding very close to that, and one that is bidding much higher than that, then why are they? Why would they pay 53 million for a system that maybe isn't even worth that much? And they've got to do all these capital improvements as the president of York Water Company.
Yeah, okay. Again, that will all be vetted through the PUC process if that's the direction that the township would like to go. Yeah.
Thank you.
Good timing.
Next we have Chris Brixius.
Chris Brixius, 55 Shelley Drive. Capital investment. The $9 to $10 million over the next 10 years, that sounds right to me as somebody who works for an engineering company who is involved with replacing wastewater treatment plant systems. There are also DEP grants available periodically. For example, this past fall there was a grant program, $310 million for small wastewater treatment plant systems owned by municipalities. Did you guys submit anything to that program for upgrades to your system? Our system.
Attaboy.
I'm not aware of any that we submitted now.
They want the money.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Due diligence for due diligence.
Wow. You knew the ship was sinking. Why didn't you just tell us? We would have given you more money. You should have told us. You don't even know about a grant and you're on the board? Oh, God.
Next we have Mike Wolf.
Honest to God, man. Communication, right? Communication. No. I ain't paid $1,500.
Mike left, we have Dennis Kern. Dennis Kern.
stand. That's it.
You already sold it.
Jackie Kaiser.
I miss my hat.
There's a seat here.
No.
Okay, right now, I am not hooked up to.
Speaking, take
Please say your name and address, please.
I'm Jackie Kaiser. I live at 350 Old Quaker Road. And I have been through this before in another township for the sewer. And I'm telling you, I worked 3 jobs to afford to hook up to the sewer.
Wow. Yep.
It was unbelievable. It's really sad when you are asking all these people, but you're not telling them how much is it going to cost us to hook up to the sewer. There has to be a fee. You're telling them a monthly fee, but you're not telling them what it's going to cost
Up front. How much?
up front, because I've been there, and it was tough. And I had no children at the time, so I can imagine if you have children right now, how much it would cost the children. Because it's expensive to raise children right now. And I'm sorry, there's a lot of people out here that have families. You guys gotta think about stuff like that for the families, too. Do you guys have any idea how much it's gonna cost for us to hook up?
So I can start answering, and JT, maybe if you want to expand on it a little bit. So we've been talking about the user rates all along, because that's what the users are going to need to pay. If you are currently on the system right now,
No,
if you're currently
I am
hooked up
not
to the
on the
system,
system right now.
that's what you're going to pay. If you're not hooked up to the system, there's no reason why you will need to hook up to the system. So,
Until you run the lines. So you're not saying that. You're not telling us, when you run the lines, how much is it gonna cost us?
That's right.
Because you did get the grants. This place that I was living at did not get grants, and guess what? I paid $8,000 to hook up, and it was very hard.
so
And I was gonna get a lien put against my house. So I know for a fact what I went through.
So maybe JT, if you want to.
And that wasn't for the water, because you're the water people. So what's that gonna cost us too?
Is this one better? So the question really, it's a great question. Thanks so much for bringing it up. The question is really about, is there a mandatory connection if the York Water Company,
The question was the price.
if you have to connect,
That's all we're worried about.
if you
is money.
have to connect,
One person at a time speaking, please.
Don't mind
if
it
you
coming out
have to
your pocket,
connect,
brother.
what is the
Boss,
cost?
that's your first warning, buddy.
I don't care.
You got 2
You
more.
don't even know about a loan, and you're on some board here trying to look all fancy like we're stupid. We're concerned about money.
No one
Work
said,
for our money.
no one said you were
All right
stupid.
then.
So the question is that if you have to connect, or even if you need to connect for some reason, what is the cost to connect? Is that correct?
For the sewer?
For the
and
sewer.
water, for both.
I can't address the water in Newberry Township because we are not certificated to serve water in Newberry Township where you are currently being served by sewer. So we cannot do that. So you'd have to address that to whoever the water provider would be. But on the sewer side, it is my understanding from the township that the township does not currently have a mandatory connection ordinance.
Correct.
So if the York Water Company chooses to extend its sewer line, and I choose to run my sewer line directly past your house, and there is no mandatory connection that you have to connect, the cost to you is 0 because you don't have to connect.
10 minutes
But
ago,
you're
you
not
said it
telling
was
us
their
that.
decision, not yours to
You're not
extend the
really
line.
telling us yes or no. Because right now, I have no problems with my sewer and my sand mountain.
If you have no problems with your sewer and your sand mound today, there is no mandatory connection to the system.
Write this
So we had the
down.
All right, let me try to answer the question. Okay. They cannot just decide they're going to run sewer. We have to request them to run sewer.
They can come and ask you. But you have to hook up
You've got developments going in all over, you're
But-
gonna force people.
I can't give you that answer. I mean, it's different everywhere you go. I mean, can anyone else answer that question intelligently?
It's clear. The question she's asking is how much the hookup fee, correct?
Like where I was at, I was gonna be put a lien against my house if I didn't pay maybe up front. I mean, I'm sorry, I own my house, I don't want a lien against my house.
So Rob, maybe, so the tap fee, so if you had to tap into, just like right now, the township has a.
Quiet, please.
The township currently has a tap fee, I believe, of $4,500. So that's what it's been, and that's if the township kept the system, that's what it would be if you wanted to hook up to the system. But I think the very important part, that's just a tap fee. Yes. So the very important thing here that we mentioned before, and JT mentioned it as well, that the township maintains control of the planning, where the sewers go. So they submit this to DEP. And DEP is a very extensive process. It doesn't happen very, very often. I think the township can probably count on one hand how many times it's been done in the past 20 or more years to go to the DEP to look to expand their service. So if you would hook up today under township ownership, or 5 years from now under township ownership, you would have to pay $4,500. If you have to connect with the York Water Company over that same time period, it would be the same amount. So whether the township owns it or whether York Water Company owns it, it is the same tap fee. It's the same tap fee to connect to it. It would be the same amount that you would have to pay to get the line from your house to the curb if you live in that situation. So there's no price differential between if the township owns it or if York Water Company owns it.
The other question I have is people need to know, because I lived in this place. I mean, I did. I worked 3 jobs, my husband and I, to make sure we had enough money to pay for it. I did not want to lien on my house. So, will you put a lien on these people's houses, because it's not fair for them not to know if they can't pay this fee up front? Because that's a lot of money for these families.
What's all of that?
So, again, I can't speak for the township and what the township does as far as liening properties today regarding sewer delinquencies or not paying tapping fees and those types of things. But the York Water Company does not have lien authority to place liens on properties. That is a responsibility that's held.
But if people don't have the money to pay it, are they going to be able to make payments, or how does all that work? $4,500 for some of the families in Newberry is going to be tough.
And I think what Scott shared was that the current cost is $4,500. So that condition exists today. How the township has dealt with that under your current operations, I'm not sure.
Can you answer that
Rob,
question?
Rob, our ordinance says within 150 feet. If we run a line, it's 150 feet, they're mandatory to hook up.
All right, so what
If we run a line.
said that our ordinance says if we run a line within 150 feet of your house, you have to hook up. But if you're, let me finish. So, is everyone under the impression that everyone in the township's gonna have to hook up to the sewer now?
Oh, yeah.
Eventually.
That is absolutely not the case. Absolutely not the case.
Less than 5 minutes ago, you said there's no mandatory.
Sewer lines are ran on an as-needed basis, not just randomly ran just to make people pay sewer bills. It's by need. Can I explain that any better than that?
Rob, do you have sewers? You live up here. You have sewer. You don't ever have sewer.
No, I don't have sewer.
And you're not that because you live up here. You don't even have sewer?
So just again to repeat. So right now there's roughly, say, 60% of the households are hooked up to the public sewer, 40% are not. If this transaction would occur, there's going to be no initiative by the York Water Company to start expanding. That stays here with the Board of Supervisors. And the Board of Supervisors just can't do it unilaterally. They have to go through very extensive planning with DEP and other agencies. It takes a very, very long time to do that. And who knows if it will even get approved or not. So there's really no difference. There's no difference with that concept, whether the township owns the system or whether they sell the system. That same process, the same authority, and the same voting action, everything stays with the township. That does not change at all under new ownership, whether it's York Water Company or any other publicly, any other investor-owned utility governed by the PUC. That does not change. So this is not in any way, shape, or form any kind of back end around to start hooking folks up to the system. In no way. It's the same control that lies with this board that it has for the past 50 years, and it will continue to be that way with no change in how sewers are run through the township. That's very important. It's a very important concept.
I mean, my sewer right now, I have a sand mount. I have no issue. So why should I have to hook up?
Well, you shouldn't. You shouldn't, and you won't. You shouldn't, and you won't.
I can assure you, sewer lines are extended on an as-needed basis, not based on them needing more connections. The only way we would extend a sewer line is if we deem necessary because of failing septic systems. I mean, developers pay for that.
Okay, so what if the developer comes in and lays in line for a new development, and all of a sudden you've got 6 people like this who are within 100 feet of that new development? Are you going to make them hook up? Yeah. More money on the system. That's right.
Again, that's the same process if the township kept the system. So there is no change in that process whether the township owns the system or they sell the system. None of that changes. So if you currently have a sand mount and it's working fine, there's no need for all the other residents that are not hooked up to the system right now. There will be no forcing, no mandate to have you hooked up to the system. Absolutely not.
Your 3 minutes is up, so thank you for your question, though, for bringing that up. Next, we have Gene Funk. Oh, that was Jackie, wasn't it? Gene Funk.
How many is that?
Not here? Okay. Jason Starr? Stall? Yeah, maybe it's Stall.
My name is Jason Stahl. I live at 608 Overlook Drive in Goldsboro. I'm not in the township, however, we are using the township sewer plant, so this does affect us going forward.
Yes, it does.
Just a simple thing, I was listening to the presentation from the water company saying that there's 12 pumping stations at $175,000 a piece to replace. And you're just throwing numbers at us to try to make it be like, oh, that's such big money. I understand that there's a couple $1 million reserve in the township right now. And if all 12 pumping stations need to replace today, that would be $2.1 million. So you have 4 times that amount right now. I don't understand why any of us would think that this is a good idea for our rates to go up. Can you guys tell me where the money came from to originally build the sewer plant?
Jack Short told us.
So one person funded the whole thing?
Yes.
And nobody paid him?
He's the guy that developed Valley Green. Town.
Okay, so he was forced to. He was forced to. Okay. All right. So moving forward, there is federal grant money that would be available. So if we need to add on or build another one, because I understand that the big problem is all the development going on in Valley Green. So yes, there are a lot of houses coming in. So get federal grant money. Or right now, the sewer plant operates in the green. I don't know about you guys, but whenever I want to buy something, I save my money and then I purchase it. I know for government that's a really weird thing, but if you guys would save the money, then, you know, in the future, there's a little bit of money there, and then you look for grant money and all these people connecting, and then all of a sudden, wow, there's money. But all that this is going to do is put all of us behind. How many of you are connected to the sewer? You're the only one. So this doesn't affect any of you.
Right? So you think my decision is based on the fact that I'm not connected to the sewer?
You don't want to know what I think your decision's based on.
30 seconds. 30 seconds.
I honestly think there's backdoor money that's making your decision. That's what I think. Because could you tell us what reasonable information that you have would tell that you could tell us that it's a good idea for you to sell this today? What's it going to do for us? It's going to raise our expenses. What else is it going to do for us?
Maybe pay the roads.
I think the presentation PFM presented.
But I just proved the water company wrong in the fact that we don't have the money to replace these pumping stations at $175,000 a piece. And we look at, like, most people are like, oh, $175,000, that's a lot of money. But I just did the math on it. It's $2.1 million. It's pretty simple. $2.1 million. You have that money laying around.
How many residents get a sewer bill every quarter?
How many people are attached to the sewer? Yes. Let's get that. 4,500. 3,500. So 3,500 people.
Time's up.
How much would the rate have to go up to come up with an extra $2 million a year?
Every $25 is $350,000.
Every $25 is what?
A quarter is $350,000.
So for a $75 rate increase, we have for a $75 rate increase, we have 1.05 million in a year. Guys, it's simple math. You can't flood me with numbers and make me not see reality.
All right, thank you.
I did the math on it.
Thank you.
Next up, John Williams.
Thank you, PFM and York Water Company, for your presentations. I do have some questions about the financial projections from PFM. What rate of inflation were they based on? What annual rate of inflation?
I believe we had 5% for the next 2 years and then 3% thereafter.
Okay. And what rates of inflation did York Water Company use on your projections?
Yeah, we used our standard rate making methodology, which is actually a rate making model, which takes into consideration not only inflationary the inflation rates, but a lot of other factors as well. There is no straight line inflation placed into the rate model. There just isn't. So I'm not going to tell you that it's 1.6 or 4.3 because that is not true. There is no standard rate. What I shared with you is that I said, presuming that you had increased your rates by 3% each year for the past 11 years, and if you use that 3% as an average, that this is what your rates would be today. That's what I said.
Thank you. And the sale of this would seem to benefit every single taxpayer in the township. And when I was looking at the rates staying the same with the no sale projection, if the sewer's sold, that's what the rate should be. You know, we're looking at funding the whole township, you know, in this pipe dream. And that might be true. I don't want to take money away from people. But my God, I personally know people. The guy across the creek from me basically couldn't afford to live at his place anymore. Now his lot was worth more than his place, but you know what? It was a place to live. And it was working for him. And it just wouldn't make sense. You know, we're talking rates going above what they would be if we just stay status quo and make the repairs and do the maintenance that's required.
Right.
That you're talking about our rates going up even more?
Yeah.
That's nuts. That, you know, here we're the sacrificial lamb.
Yes.
And then you're gonna rate, hey, here's how much it's gonna hurt. I don't get it. You know, I understand if we have liabilities, and they're probably all funded, but we have retirees, we have an obligation to pay them. A lot of these expenses and a lot of these liabilities are things that are put into the budget. They're part of a strategic plan. And they're paid for by savings and investments, and yes, levying taxes. That's what government does. And as far as having a big kitty of money, in recent history, I have not seen any government agency reward financial responsibility. If they have an agenda and they can involve you in it, you may get some of the money. But being financially responsible doesn't seem to play into who gets the money.
Thank you for your comments. Next we have Kim Hewitt.
Hi, my name's Kim Hewitt. I'm at 445 Paddletown Road. And I would like to understand this $11 million is going to go into the fund for the people. How does that work? How and who is benefiting from that, and exactly what benefit specifically will we each receive?
So the way that would work, so again, we have a kind of a year to go through the details, but let's just say, for example, we set aside $11 million. That would be township money. They would invest that money how they foresee, and we're assuming a 3% rate of return going forward. Right now, they could get over 5%. So on an annual basis, they would look at the number of sewer users, and again, we're tracking what it would look like if the township kept the system and what those rates look like. Basically, there would be a rebate back on an annual basis, whether they do it through real estate taxes or some other mechanism that the sewer user will receive, say $300 or $400, whatever that is in that given year, to go back to those sewer users. So as far as who's benefiting, the only beneficiary are the sewer users.
Every single sewer user would benefit. It would not be based on income. It would not be based on anything else. Every single person would receive that. That is on the
Every
sewer.
single household hooked up to the system.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. I think that there should be a little bit more fiscal responsibility from our township, because you put us in this situation. Your poor management of our financials has put us here. So where is the accountability? I work in finance, so if I were to do this, I mean, my job would be on the line. In fact, I wouldn't have a job. And my last question, sir, would be, when are you up for election?
I have 4 more years.
His name's Joe. So ask him to type the.
I'll probably stay right now. I'll donate $1,000 to your campaign fund.
Awesome.
Right?
Why don't you donate it to the sewer fund? And maybe, maybe that. Yeah. And the condescension, sir, is rude. Your condescending remarks, sir, are rude. And unnecessary. Turn it off. Of course they turn it off. They don't want us to hear it.
Was there 3 minutes up?
No. Well, she's working. She's started walking away, I turned the timer off.
What do you have to say?
Resign.
Sir, can you repeat your comment?
Condescending remarks are unnecessary.
I was serious. I will donate $1,000 to a campaign fund.
You are very condescending and rude. And quite frankly, I think you should be out of this position.
Thank you.
Because they have special.
Next, we have Mike Schaefer.
Yeah, I'm Mike Schaefer. Question I have is, have you put any bids out there to reconstruct the pumping stations before we decide to sell it?
No, we haven't.
Don't you think we should do something like that before we just sell our problem that we created?
We as a board started this process January 2022. We were elected and we as a board thought this was the best interest of the township, not the best interest of us personally.
That's good, but I'm just saying, before you come in tomorrow and say, we're just gonna vote on this, why don't we do a little more homework? Maybe you started a year ago, maybe it's gonna take another year. And as the mayor said earlier, it can take a year to make the sale, so let us a little more time and look into repairing those stations and seeing what kind
The question
of...
you want to ask is, Brent, do we need to replace any pumping stations?
There you go, good question.
No, it's not.
Not at this time. Did you hear that? Not at this time.
Okay.
We don't have.
Well, then maybe it's time to look at that, how we repair that, put it out for bid. And there was a lot of companies out there that do those kind of things. In fact, I did years ago. I built pump houses for water treatment systems. And you have to get that done before you can just sell it. I think that's what everybody would like.
Maybe I can just add something to that. So again, I don't think the genesis of exploring the sale was because of failing pumping stations. In our capital plan that was provided by the township, that was then built into our indicative rate if the township kept the system, that $9 or $10 million number that I had mentioned, I believe there were 2 pump station upgrades in that. So I think that was just a hypothetical example that was used, not to say that we are doing this because of failing pumping stations. Again, fully transparent. In our projections, and the numbers given to us by the township, we're assuming 2 pumping stations, if the township kept the system, will be upgraded over the next 10 years. If York Water Company buys it, they may see something different. Maybe they need to upgrade 3 or 4, but the purpose of this exploration process was not because the pump stations were failing. I think it was just, again, an example of what could happen, but we're being fully honest in our models, 2 pump stations over the next 10 years.
And
What it would be if the township.
I think those 2 and all of them should be looked at least given a grade of what the condition of that pump station is.
Well, that will all be looked at.
So the whole township will have an idea of what we're selling or what we shouldn't sell.
So that will be, if the township decides they want to move forward, there will be 2 highly qualified independent engineers doing valuations of the system. And that will have in there the age of the pump stations and cost and everything. That's all going to be built into that valuation that residents are more than welcome to take a look at. But that is all part of that PUC process to make sure very highly qualified engineers that are certified by the state to be able to do the evaluation.
That's all after the fact of, yes, we're going to buy it.
Yes, that's right.
I'm asking it to be before we buy it.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you for your comments.
Next up we have David Yost.
Yost, 1055.
Want to hear you.
David Yost, 1055 Yoakumtown Road. First question is, how's PFM getting paid?
Good question. Good question.
So we have a contract that was approved by the board last year, and it was broken out into 3 phases. So phase 1 was the initial valuation, high-level valuation. We were paid $7,500. Phase 2 and phase 3 are contingent upon settlement. Phase 2 is an hourly rate up through the acceptance of the bid, if there is an acceptance. Phase 3 is then a percentage based on the size of the transaction to get us to closing. Phase 2 and phase 3 fees are contingent upon settlement. We have already notified the administration and the board that if a sale does go through, our phase 2 fees are discounted by 50%.
Oh, wow.
We have not talked about phase 3 discount yet, just because we have not gotten to that point, but that contract was approved at a public meeting, and that's how our fee arrangement is set.
What is the percentage?
1.45%.
What was the hourly rate?
$53 million.
$700,000.
Guys, figure that out.
$800,000 altogether.
Yep. It's good.
808.
808.
You're not hiring.
You have more questions, sir?
Sure, yeah. One of the things here says mitigate the need for future tax increases. Somebody already mentioned this, I guess, but on whose backs? On the backs of the people that are on the sewer. Or of you will be benefiting because your taxes won't go up.
Say it again.
I said, mitigate the need for future tax increases on whose backs? The backs of the people on the sewer.
Yeah.
Those of you who are on the sewer are actually going to benefit because your taxes will stay low. Isn't that nice?
Yeah. There you go.
Right now, we have about $8 million. Each year, we're making almost $500,000. So somebody said we weren't putting money away, but I guess we are putting money away.
But Dave, you should know what you did in the past. You were a sewer authority,
I was on the sewer authority about 1.5 years.
so you have some info.
And we do have a mandatory tap fee if they go by your house too.
There you
You have to hook
go.
up. If they go by your house, I don't care if you have a new sand mound or whatever. That's the way it is.
That was the within.
It's been that way forever. I think we have probably one of the best run sewer plants in your county. In fact, the guy from York Water who come out to look at the plant said, "Why are you selling this?" He didn't seem to think there was a lot of problems, a lot of things that need to fix up.
Hey Dave, we also have a 0% complaint rate.
0% what?
Complaint rate.
So you guys can focus more on other core government services. Well, you had a municipal authority. Nobody seems to know why you got rid of it. The only thing I can figure out, you got rid of it because you saw money in the pot that you got hold of.
4 of us wasn't here.
30 seconds.
4 of you weren't here. Which one was here?
Maxine.
Why did they do that, Maxine?
Well, I came in, excuse me. I came in at the end of that, but. No, it's not no accountability. I came in the middle of that, well, really towards the end of that.
Middle to end.
And I think, Grant, were you in on that one?
Dave, what
They
year,
wanted to
what year
dissolve
was
it.
it?
Now listen,
Pardon?
What year was it?
we
I
are,
don't know. When I was on.
I don't.
Oh, no, I don't know what year they did.
we can only spend, we can't spend that money in that fund. We can't spend that money, it's only for certain, we can't really make a
What does that have to
profit.
do with the authority?
It was easier to manage, was my understanding.
You mean the township can't spend the money that the,
No, we cannot.
well, you shouldn't be spending it. The sewer people are the ones that paid for it. It should go to the
I
sewer.
understand, I'm not your enemy, sir.
And I understand now you're taking 80 to 100,000 out of that for whatever reason, just because you can.
Well, also, DEP recommends that we sell the
Oh,
sewer.
I'm sorry. Your time's up.
My time is up. You guys are supposed to talk. talking.
All right, I'll give you another another point.
You want to consider establishing a rate stabilization fund. I've assumed this was for low-income people. Now, you want to have less work to do in the township. It seems to be that would make more work. And right now, you don't do a whole lot with the sewer. You have somebody run the sewer plant, knows what he's doing. He's the one that made the sewer plant the way it is today.
I don't disagree with you, does a great job.
He does a great job.
I don't disagree with you on that.
When that buzzer goes off, he goes out. He doesn't even send one of the employees out. He goes out himself, takes care of
But
stuff.
someday he's not gonna be able to do that.
Well, that's well, then he needs to train somebody to do that. Didn't you just hire somebody?
Exactly. Or somebody else that can do it.
All right. I'll have to stop you there. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave.
Cheryl Catherine? Catherine?
I think this is already a done deal. I think you think we're all idiots. So I have no questions.
That is absolutely not true.
Why don't you change the meeting so we can
Brell Perkins?
I'm not doing it.
New York, guys, come to New York. Vote on it now.
It's on the agenda tomorrow night.
Yep, there you go.
People voted to make the people say no.
They must turn it off.
It's on.
Push it up. Is it on? There we go. Okay, sorry. Brell Perkins. I live at 430 Red Mill Road in Edders. And that was actually my question. I'm wondering if it is just a done deal because I see you guys sitting up here and it looks like you're just sitting back. I mean, you're saying feasibility study, you're wondering if it's feasible, and we're all telling you it's not. We don't understand. We don't know why you're doing this. We don't need it. If you need to raise our rates a little bit to cover expenses, then raise our rates a little bit. We're all good with that. You know, you haven't raised them in 11 years, and that's great, but it was short-sighted of you, and that's on you. And again, we're all mad because it doesn't affect you. And yeah, you're sitting up here saying, oh, do you think that that was the reason? And no, we just don't think you thought about it. And you're thinking, you know, it's like, well, it doesn't affect me, so I'm not going to do it. It affects all of us. And we put you where you are. We're trusting you to make good decisions on our behalf. We're trusting you, and you are failing us miserably. You're hurting your constituents. You're hurting your neighbors. You're hurting your community by doing this. We do not see any benefit in doing it. We only see hurt to us. When in a system that's working fine, somebody back there said it. If it's not broken, don't fix it. In this case, it's not. There's nothing. It's not broken. Don't fix it.
This is not a done deal. We call this meeting here.
Well, I think it's pretty obvious. You had so many people leave because of the BS that we were hearing. Words and words and words just being thrown at us, and half of it we didn't even understand. Some of it, I'm sorry, a little condescending. We were not. That was not cool. And you know what? I do have a question for you, Mr. York County Water. How many customers do you have?
If my comments that I made, so I'll stand up.
Yeah, please.
Can you please let him talk?
The thing is we're not interested in more.
If my comments were condescending, that was not my intent, and I apologize if they came across as condescending. I did not mean to do that. That was not intentional.
Okay.
And so I apologize for that. The question that came forward was how many customers do we have? 80,000 connections. 80,000 connections.
And it sounds like you're trying to expand because you've already said that you're across the state line already.
We are not across the state line, not the Pennsylvania state line.
Okay, sorry. I'm sorry, county line. So you're looking to expand because one of the concerns is about our local, you know, making sure that you're taking care of the local people because our Newberry Township sewer does that. If you keep expanding and you're adding on all of these things, then that thins out your resources. We don't have thinned out resources right now. We're good.
So, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Nope, that's it.
No, so you're absolutely correct that we continue to grow our footprint and we continue to add customers to the York Water Company's customer rolls. When we add those customers to our rolls, we add the additional resources to make sure that we can take care of those customers as well as the current customers that we're serving. So it's not a static where we add customers and we add no other resources, so therefore the newer customers are jeopardized as a result.
I understand that, but
Yeah.
still the thing is you're 13 miles away. We're right here. And you're 13 miles away, but spreading out all over York County. We are right here. York County sewer, Newbury Township sewer is right here. We're always going to just care about us because we are just us. Please, please, please don't do this.
Pearl.
Brell.
Pearl.
Brell.
Me.
B-R-E-L-L-E. Brell.
Oh, sorry. I have an estimate. 10 years for the old cost for a resident is $5,900. It's $5,960. And 10 years for York Water is $11,659.
We know. We saw the numbers. That's what we're all upset about. You could raise our rates, and it's not going to hurt us that much. You could raise our taxes, and it's not going to hurt us that much. Somebody said that at the last township meeting. Thank you for your time.
All right, thank you.
There you go, you can get a mic.
Next, John Lewis.
John Lewis.
Well, first of all, you two are very well dressed and eloquent speakers and salespeople. I'm here in a dog chart. You were promoting this, and I believe there's quite a few people here that might even be older than me, that might be seniors and don't have computer access. They could have mailed this out. Some people didn't know it was available on the internet, so I think you kind of eliminated some people access to the information. And now we'll come to you guys. So you get revenue, and I don't know what it is, so from the sewer plant right now. How do you plan on to replace that revenue? Raising taxes?
No, the revenue, well, for the slide that he showed, we cut the revenue spending by 880,000, or maybe you can explain that sheet better than I can.
So again, right now, the township is allowed to utilize some of the sewer revenue to subsidize the general fund. And it has to be reasonable and it has to be justifiable. And it's to the tune of, say, $100,000, somewhere in there. So it's been a little bit less. So going forward, as I mentioned, if the township moved forward with the sale, based on the savings from paying off some of the debt and funding the other liabilities, as well as the conservative interest earnings on those funds that are going to be set up, that's going to generate over $2 million per year. So there's about $100,000 that the township will not be able to utilize for their general fund anymore, but there will be north of $2 million that the township will be able to utilize.
It still doesn't make sense that you're selling the only income that you have, an asset. You know, it just doesn't make sense to the common ordinary person. And, you know, maybe I'm not the sharpest tool.
So from a legal perspective, there are restrictions on being able to use sewer money for non-sewer related items. So that is, there's statute out there, and there are legal restrictions that there are certain limitations, and the township is very much within the limitations right now, but can't be really doing much more. So that's all dictated by legislation, by state legislation.
It's interesting that you're with the water company and you're explaining for them.
Well, I'm not with the water. I'm with the independent advisor showing the township the information.
Okay, thank you.
And sir, before you leave. So the money that we were setting aside, that he was explaining, that he was just explaining, I'll let him say because he's a better speaker than me. We're talking about putting money in a pot, not spending that pot, but using the interest for the next 20, 30, 50 years. Like, we're not talking about spending. The funds are going to stay in a pot. We're going to use the interest
After the building
to spend. So the money will always be earning interest and earning income.
After the building's done, though.
Why weren't they doing that to begin with, to keep up the maintenance on the sewer system?
So I've only been here for a little
No,
year, so I can't.
I'm not talking to you, I'm just, the board in general, your past and.
I suppose.
I can't answer that, but I was just trying to explain to you my thoughts on it. Thank you.
Yeah. He's got a long list of people signed up.
Next we have Ken Starner.
So if you wanna.
He left?
Okay, that's fine. I know. Go ahead, put your name and your address.
Mr. Scott?
I'll give it to him, but you're gonna be probably last. I'm sorry.
Okay, no problem.
20 Champion Drive? Jane Harmon?
I'll give it to him.
I want to respond to a comment about DEP, because I know Richard. Okay. I want to respond to her comment about DEP and Richard.
Y'all know me well because I speak longer than 3 minutes, but, okay, hold on, I gotta put my glasses.
I want to respond to her
Start that
comment
yet.
Okay, sir.
about DEP.
Are you on the list here at all?
No, but I'm just saying, because I know Richard at DEP, and she's saying that he's pressuring you.
No, she didn't say that.
Huh?
No.
No, I just want to respond to Maxine Scoffman's comment about DEP forcing them to do this or putting pressure on it, do that, or recommending it. If you want Richard Negron, that is spelled Negrin, he is the acting secretary of DEP. You can call him tomorrow and flood his office with it and find out exactly what they're sending them. So I would suggest everybody in this room call DEP tomorrow, ask for acting secretary Richard Negron, and ask him to go on the record with what they're pressuring them to do. You want copies that's been sent here, you're going to ask for the open records, and if they fight you on it, tell them you're going to go to legal on it because you have a right for it, okay? Thank you. And he has publicly gone out and said that he is here for the people. He doesn't want to force it on us. He wants to work with everyone. There are videos of him saying it. So act on it and tell him it's his time to step up to it and find out if they're doing it, and let's call their bluff.
So much to say. I'm going to call the one thing you said, we live paycheck to paycheck, Mr. Shearer. We do not live paycheck to paycheck. I want to make that clear. Our board voted this year. We passed a budget. I was there at the meeting. I've been attending for the last 2 years. There's a lot of things going on. And I'm going to tell you, there's a building that's being built right now. It is our police building. We're not talking about the elephant in the room here. It's an $8 million building. That's why we don't have enough money. That's why they have to sell their sewer authority. That's why. We don't have a choice to shop around for electric. We have a choice for electric. We have a choice for our TV service, for our phone service, everything we do. Even my pharmacy, I have a choice. I choiced this weekend to check around to get my pharmacy. I got it $14 and it was $200 because I had a card and I could shop around. When you sell the sewer authority, I'm not going to have a choice, and either are these people. You're going to get what you get, and it's going to be thousands of dollars more than we currently pay. I don't understand it. We can pass a balanced budget. We don't need to sell the sewer authority to do it. You got a grant for $2 million. You took a loan for $4 million. That makes us short a couple $1 million on the building. So why should the 3,000 residents that are currently hooked to the sewer have to pay when there's 7,200 residents? So I am paying for that building. My neighbor who's not connected is not paying for that building.
I'm paying for the roads that he's gonna enjoy. Why should we pay, the residents that are hooked to the sewer have to pay to fund this township? It should be across the board, raise the tax across the board. Change the millage, change it. If we gotta raise the sewer to fund the sewer, to keep it running, raise it. But I know we are sitting on $7 million. We make over $500,000 a year. We give you $100,000 a year. There's money there. You're just not spending it right, and you're spending it on a building. Our police are 60% of our budget. Back at budget time, I said, let's make some cuts. Let's make some cuts. You guys continue. You made some cuts, but I see on the board, things are coming back. Oh, we're gonna vote on this now. Well, wait, did we just cut that out of the budget? Well, we did, but it's a couple months later and the taxpayers don't know about it, so we're gonna vote on it again. That's what you guys are doing at every meeting. Folks, tomorrow they're gonna vote. I hope you show up. I hope you are boisterous at that meeting. They need to represent us. We elected them to represent us. And I am that. I vote no. I vote no confidence in this board. You did that a couple months ago with one of our fire departments. Let's do it to you. How many have confidence in this board? You're hearing us speak. Listen tomorrow when you vote.
I have confidence in
I have a lot more. I have a fun fact. Oh, too bad it cut off. I'll have to say it tomorrow.
Thank you. Connie Foster.
Oh, it's crazy. There you go. All right, this is much too important of an issue to be decided by the majority of the elected officials who have already shown their incompetency among other decisions that they've made. This should have been put on the ballot as a referendum for all the citizens to have a say. There should have been more meetings. There should have been a committee. Since only 1 out of 5 board members is actually connected to the sewer, it seems the other 4 have much to say about something that may not even affect them. Issue number 1, the financial advisors, PMF. How much they bring? How much? $808,000. Now, mind you, they also got a fee for the new building. How much was that? $20,000. $20,000. So we're shelling out $828,000 for this company to give us a building and to give us a buyer for the sewer, which we don't even need to sell.
That's 13 miles down the road.
That's exactly right. Now on top of that, they're going to get, they want a finder's fee for this. Annually, the sewer brings in $600,000 and gives the township $100,000. There's been no increase in sewer rates for 11 years. Maybe what they should have been doing as good stewards of the township is taking money, taking this $100,000, putting generators on these pumping stations that don't have a generator, starting to do some of the preventive maintenance they could have been doing.
backup generator, just not there. He hasn't met the place, so we do have backup generator.
We do it on all of them?
He has them at the shop.
Oh, they said there was no generators.
At the pump, but it is at the shop.
There is. Oh, at the shop. So the pump won't go down if the, okay.
There are no generators installed on the pumping stations is what he meant. Yeah. So they're all in force.
Maybe there should be. Okay, so the there are other ways to fix some of the broken lines. There's a municipality in a county not far from us that are encasing lines, so that if some of the pipes and whatnot start to rot out, there are other ways, and DEP is helping municipalities to do this and to fund this and encasing pipes. It's not an end-all be-all if our system goes down. Now, tomorrow on the agenda, there's a couple of other things that people need to be there to look at. The second-class township code states that a budget cannot be adopted if it's knowingly inaccurate. We called this out during the budget meetings. There were no budget changes, but since the beginning of the year, there have been no less than 5 resolutions which have been passed that have given a reduction or have given an increase in the budget amount that was not originally budgeted for, but now we're spending the money. So instead of going through the budget process as outlined in the second-class township, we just passed a resolution. And those amounts somewhere around close to $500,000.
So I would just encourage everybody to attend the meeting tomorrow night and to voice our opinions. I think that it's time that maybe we get 4 out of the 5 board members need to resign.
Thank you. On that fact of the $500,000 budget increase, a lot of that money is reimbursed by grants.
Now you know that brand.
Next we have Nevin and Lisa Schenk.
It's just going to be me. Is that loud? Yeah, here we go. Okay. My name is Nevin Shank. My wife and I live at 575 Red Mill Road. We've been there since 1975. I want to thank you folks for having this tonight. I know it's necessary, and I'm glad you did, so thank you very much for doing that. More would have been nice, but at least we got this one, so thank you. At our home, we live along Fishing Creek. We have creek frontage on both sides of we have land on both sides of the creek. And about 20-some years ago, the township took 1,800 linear feet of our property for the sewer line. And even though we have 25 acres, we're still required to hook up. So be careful, folks. We were within 150 feet, so it's mandated to hook up. And this is just history. It's done. I'm not going back to that. I'm not revisiting it. I'm just giving it some background. Here's my concern. I have really 2 of them. As a resident, all these folks here, myself, if we have an issue with the sewer, we can call Scott. We can pick up the phone, get a hold of the township manager, call one of the supervisors, tell you what our issues are, talk about it, and you folks will listen and respond. I'm concerned, despite what this gentleman has said, I'm not saying he's not telling the truth, that we're not going to have the same ability to address an issue if we have on a sewer authority, if we have a chance to talk to the local folks and not somebody who's in York. That's one issue. We give up that opportunity if we turn this over to somebody else in the private sector. The second question I have is, we're getting $53 million in here. And obviously, somewhere along the line, the water company's going to make us pay for that. And I'm not talking about the township. I'm talking about the residents and the people who are hooked up to the source system. So at some point, we're going to pay for that. It may not be for 2 years, but 6, 7, 8 years, we're going to pay for it. It's not free. They're not here to give us money. It's a business. They're here to make money, and I understand that. They've been in business for 203 years, if my memory's correct. Pardon? 207, okay, I stand corrected. I have one major question, and that is, who's going to represent the residents who are hooked up before the administrative law judge at the Public Utility Commission? Because I don't know. I know ALJs are the ones that decide whether the rate increases are going to be approved or not. Who represents me, my wife, and other residents who are hooked up at the Public Utility Commission? Because I know they're there, but I'm not going to be there. And they're not going to be there. So that's my point. That's another thing we give up. We give up the ability to have conversation with you folks when you're thinking about a rate increase, something fair and reasonable. We give up that opportunity to have that conversation with you, because we're not going to have that conversation with these folks. It's going to be gone. It's the PUC. They've even said themselves, I'm familiar with the Public Utility Commission. We don't have somebody there to speak for us easily. So anyhow, thank you again for the opportunity. Do you have an answer to the question?
Rob?
Pardon? I can't hear you.
I thought it was a facetious question.
No. Who's going to represent us?
Are you kidding me? The Public Utility Commission is representing the public. That's who's representing.
Correct. Correct. They represent the public, but there's one side already there, and that's the water company. We're not sitting there. They're thinking on their own without without our presence. We're not there. So yeah, they represent the public. I've been there. I've seen the ALJs. I know what they do. So please don't question me in that.
Sir, I wasn't questioning. I really wasn't. I really didn't.
It was not a facetious question. It was legitimate. Who represents these folks here? Dave Yost, myself, and other people who spoke tonight before the PUC. Nobody. The PUC represents us. Who's that? It's state government.
That's right.
That was as honest an answer I can give you, sir.
Okay. It's a legitimate question, something for you folks to think about. The fact that we lose our ability to talk to you about issues with the sewer authority and about potential rate increases. It's not a done deal. They've got a process they've got to go through. And it's not always granted in full, but they're granted something. So anyhow, thank you for your time. Thank you for having the meeting. I appreciate it.
Thank you for your comment.
Maybe I could just add to that. Maybe, I don't know if I totally understood the question, but yes, the PUC is there for the ratepayers, but there are quite a few advocate groups, the OCA, INE, and others, that are there specifically for the ratepayers. And they will intervene in this process if the township decides to move forward. And I think we can all say from experience, especially the York Water Company, that the OCA is a very loud voice and a very powerful voice, and they are there to protect the ratepayers. So they're very much involved in every one of these processes, not just an acquisition process, but also for general rate increase requests as well. So there are quite a few bodies there with the PUC that are there specifically just to advocate for the ratepayers. Yeah, and this is you're able to intervene, you're able to call in, you're able to be there. Up in Harrisburg, they also allow for dial-in, so you can have active participation with these groups as well. So that will all be part of the process if the township decides to move forward. So I don't think we can stress enough how involved these other advocacy agencies are, not on behalf of York Water Company, but on behalf of the ratepayers. And they will fight very hard, and we've seen it time in and time out to benefit the ratepayers.
Thanks. Next we have, I believe it's Tony Vance.
My questions have been asked and answered.
So you're Tony? Okay, thank you. Colleen Bayshore? Colleen Bayshore? Jen Updegraff? I guess that wasn't Jen. Okay, all right. Lauren Williams. Lauren Williams. Line Williams. Christina Barkley. Christina Barkley. Vicki Crone. Stephanie Carlton.
Okay. I have a question about the bidding. I've worked for the state for 26 years, and normally when you do the bidding process, it's done, at least 4 bidders are taken, And it's usually the lowest bidder. They're not taken by reputation or any other reason. I wanted to know why it was selected by reputation and not the lowest bidder.
So I don't think it was so totally selected by reputation. So we had four.
That's what
So we had four
this
pre-qualified.
lady right here just said that it was selected by reputation.
They have a good reputation.
Yeah, but that's not how you're supposed to do a public bid.
We
So-
only had 2 bids.
So we had four. We had four pre-qualified bidders. So we had four pre-qualified bidders. We had Aqua, we had Pennsylvania American, and we had York Water Company. And during the due diligence process, we also had a fourth. We had NextEra Energy. Towards the end of the process, NextEra Energy decided they were going to be doing something else, so they are exiting the business and no longer pursuing utility sales around the nation. So we had four pre-qualified bidders. Per township code, the township does not have to accept the highest bid. Here in this particular case,
I'm saying the lowest bid.
well, the lowest bid, so when you're selling something,
Price.
but when you're selling something, you want the highest bid.
No, when you're
buying something, you want the
right,
lowest.
when you have someone come in and they give you a bid for a service, normally the way it's done is the lowest bid is accepted. It's not done by reputation.
Right, so again, so we had the four pre-qualified bidders. The selection criteria was based on
Whose criteria was that?
It was what was notified to the bidders on how the selection process.
That's not how it's done in state or municipal.
Well, this is a municipal procurement. This is municipal procurement. So it was based on the best overall package, which takes into account purchase price, indicative rates, reputation, customer service, locality. There's a whole host of qualitative and quantitative factors that were involved in this process. So we met all the township code bidding requirements. We met all the bidding requirements. And for selling a system, you don't want to accept the lowest purchase price. You want to accept something on the higher side. You don't legally have to accept the highest bid, but in this case, it just happens to be the case with York Water Company that they had the highest bid and also the other good factors as well.
Okay. That's all I had to say.
Thank you.
I know what she's saying.
Chris Quintana?
So I did have something that I had written down and that I was going to share with you guys tonight, but the salesman, he kind of sold me on York Water. So he told me be balanced. That's how you do things, right? And what's good for some is not good for all. And I don't think in this case that you're good for all. Because in this case, if you see the finances, it just doesn't make any sense. If you're paying them a fixed rate that doesn't change at all, at what, 58 million, is that the case?
53.
53, thank you. But our rates are able to change, and then in the third year, they go up, and you're not even telling us what really can affect it, because it's not just inflation. See, I teach American government. And so what they don't teach you is the economics, okay? So I applaud your attempt at macro, okay? But the problem is that at the local level, they're just not as informed as at the state level. So that's why they come in and they bring lawyers to come inform them. But these lawyers don't think that you're smart enough to make a decision. And that's why they schedule meetings so that you can't make it. How many of you are at every town meeting? It's a fraction. And they get away with it blindly because you're not involved. It doesn't matter if you're Democrat or Republican. I'm a moderate. I don't really care. You guys mean a lot to me. I've only been here 2 years, and I love this town. I've made friends. Jordan, I've made friends here. I come to bingo. I know some of you people, not all of you. but I would like to get to know you. And they can't push you around. They shouldn't be pushing you around. And I'm telling you right now that if you go through this vote, you have an entire room of people telling you no, and you vote yes, I will make your legal life hell for the next 4 years.
Thank you. Next, we have Sandra Gonzalez.
My name's Sandra Gonzalez, and I live at 140 Oak Road, York Haven, Newberrytown, really. I was wondering why on option 1, the bid seemingly from York was $53 million, but then there was an option 2 for $30 million that also appears to be from York Water Company on your chart.
They gave two prices. One was with different rates, like lower rates was the lower number.
But I'm trying to understand why.
That wasn't requested, so I don't have the answer to that question.
I'm just curious if that's a $23 million difference. There has to be a reason.
Yeah, so it's a great observation. So when the York Water Company submitted its bid, we submitted 2 bids. We submitted a bid for $53 million and we submitted a bid for $30 million. We recognize that the bid for $53 million would result in a certain rate structure which would ultimately be borne by the customers, residents of the township. A $30 million bid would result in a lower rate for the customers. So we wanted to give the township an opportunity to look at 2 different bids in consideration of what the rate impacts would be as a result of those 2 bids. That's why we put in 2 bids.
So the extra $23 million was to gain surety of getting the bid, perhaps, as a business?
So basically, the way that the rate making procedure works, based upon the valuation of the assets through the very lengthy process that Scott was talking about, if the Public Utility Commission were to approve this transaction and the rate structure and the value of the system at $53 million, they will give us a return on $53 million of assets.
Right.
What does that mean? Your rates are higher.
That's what I'm...
If the Public Utility Commission only gives us a return on $30 million, your rates are lower. So basically what the York Water Company presented in front of the board for their consideration is to leave that $23 million in potential rate off the table.
Are you subsidized by the federal government or the state government at all in your the fact that you run a utility?
We are a private company. We are not subsidized by the federal government or the state government.
Okay, well, Elon Musk gets all kinds of money from the government to do what he does. So you don't get any money. I'm trying to do the math in my head, and for you to pay $53 million tells me you guys obviously aren't stupid. You've run an incredible company all these years. That for them to put money in an account that earns interest and give us back as you raise, it's almost like you're getting that money back. They might as well just give that money back to you so you don't raise us. Are you following me? Because what they're saying is that there would be money that if our rates go up, it would protect the customer. And they would give us money back because we're giving you money. So you might as well skip the step. And if I may, I want to commend you guys. I think you guys are all sincere homeowners in this community. I think you love your community. And I'm sorry that you've been beat up so much because you don't deserve that. You have done the homework that you've done. Perhaps you could have done better, perhaps not, I don't know, it's not my wheelhouse. But I think you're all sincere, and I think you serve your communities with sincerity, and I thank you for that.
So maybe I could just add one piece of that. So when we evaluated the bids, when we evaluated the bids, we took that into consideration. So we took the $53 million bid and their indicative rates. We also took the $30 million bid and the indicative rates. And the way we did the analysis was looking at the taxpayer and the ratepayer holistically, both real estate tax, sewer fee, kind of the whole gamut. And the difference between the two bids, the 53 million and the 30 million, that outweighed the impact to the residents and to the ratepayers. So we did the analysis. So if it would have been maybe a $30 million bid versus a $40 million bid and those same rates, the net outcome probably would have been better with the $30 million bid for the residents of the township. But having that greater difference, the 30 million versus 53 million, the net benefit was better with the $53 million option.
I understand that, but the thought of putting money into a fund so that if our rates are raised higher, they can help out, then it's really just giving it back to you guys. It's almost like the shell game, you know, and I don't think that's deliberate on anybody's part as far as you guys and your thinking and all, but that to me is how it sounds like it works.
All right, thank you. Next we have Tom Ream.
Tom Ream, I live at 210 River Road, and just so everybody knows, I'm not connected. I will probably never ever be connected, but what they're doing is screwing you guys big time. I'm not here for me, I'm here for you guys, okay?
Thank you.
Mr. Hand, Mr. John Hand?
Yes.
Got a question for you.
Sure.
How many years does it normally take for you to get your money out of your investment? I look at this $53 million as an investment, right? How many years do you plan on getting your $53 million out of this?
Break even.
To break even? Now, come on, this should be easy.
About 12.
12 years. 12 years at what rate? Certainly not at 300, wait a minute, let me cut you right
Tom,
here.
here's the numbers I got. 10 years is 40,807,000, and 13 years is 56,789,000.
Is that only of the 3,000
That's the
people?
rates they gave us.
Is that the 3,000 people that are
3,500 people.
3,500 counting Goldsboro, right?
Can,
So that's also paying at $380 a quarter. Is that correct?
And going up.
That's at $380 a quarter?
Well,
Because when I did the math,
Stuff they gave us here, stuff we have there.
yeah, when I did the math, there's no way. You can't do it. So the math does not make sense.
Go ahead, man. You want to answer the question?
Yeah, I'm not going to challenge your math because I don't have the same information that you're looking at, so I can't compare.
The same
our models
information
here.
that you give on bid 1, bid 2, 30 million, 53 million. It's the same information that if you guys did 30 million, the residents would be paying $282.75 in 10 years, or $380.51 in 10 years. So it's $100 more a quarter, $400 more a year for 3,500. I forgot Goldsboro, sorry folks. Okay, the math doesn't add up. Okay, so this is where I get confused, this is where I get scared. And Rob, you told me there's no way I'll ever have to get hooked up, okay?
I don't know if I said no way.
I was insured tonight by you. You insured everybody that we would never have to get hooked up. Okay? That's what was said. Am I right? If we didn't want it, we didn't have to get hooked up. Now, here's.
If you know that if the development goes past your place, if you're contested, you're going to hook it.
And that's exactly what I'm going to say. And as much as developing is going through this township, okay, it's going to happen. Now, I'm back far enough, I probably won't. But I got neighbors, I got elderly neighbors. My mother's one of them. Okay, she's within the 150 feet, 100 feet. She has a septic field. She shouldn't have a stand now. She can't afford these rates. She can't do it. Okay, plus to get connected. $4,500 to get connected. Give me a break. We don't need that. This sewer has been running great for the past 30-some years. Brent, you did a great job on it. Okay, you're running well. Brent needs an applause right now because this is what he's done. Scott, I listened to your presentation tonight, and it was very good, but I felt like it was too much information. That we had a lot of questions, and we weren't allowed to stop here. Okay. But Rob, what I did ask you, before the meeting started, if I could ask questions during, I was not allowed. But folks, I'm sorry, I dropped that. I printed this off today off of Google. It's called Toilet to Tap. It's Pennsylvania's seeing feeding frenzy of sales of public water and sewer systems. Okay? And as much as they say the PUC will help you, bullshit. Bullshit, bullshit, bullshit. 22 sales over the past 5-6 years have gone through for Sewer Authority, and the PUC passed every single one of them. There was only one person that said no. All the other 4 said, yeah, we don't care. It's a regulated monopoly. That's what you're doing for this. It's a regulated monopoly. Okay? Now, I have one last question, then I'll shut up. Because I am going to give you this. Okay. You 5 need to read this. Okay? I dog-eared some pages. I highlighted some things. What you're doing, can you take that phone? What you're doing is you're hurting the citizens. You're hurting your shareholders, your stakeholders. That's who, if you think this is a business, you want to run this as a business, this is your shareholders right here. Yeah. And you're raping them. You're stealing from them. You're screwing them. Okay? We have shareholders too. They're right here. You have shareholders, and I know right now your stock's going to be going up if this goes through. Okay? And that's...
Your time is back.
I know my time's
back. Can I have those papers?
I'll get papers. Okay, one last question. It'll be simple.
Yep.
Okay, one last question. Each one of you right now. How do you feel? Dave? Yes or no?
Now I feel like I'm going to throw up.
Maxine?
When I came here, I
Use the mic,
did
Maxine.
not make a decision on how I was gonna vote.
But now?
I was waiting for, don't please me, you don't need to heckle me, I'm trying to give an answer.
Don't let her give my answer. Okay? I've waited. I mean,
I came here and I did not know where I was going.
okay, now?
Now, you don't know, if, say I vote no, and everybody else or whoever votes no, doesn't mean another board's not gonna go around.
Oh, you know what? I'll tell you what, anybody, Jane wants to run to be on the supervisor. Jane right here, okay? Right in the fall, Jane, okay? She will be there. Okay, okay. Rob? Which way are you going?
I'm not voting.
Okay, but which way are you feeling?
I genuinely listened to everyone that spoke, and whether anyone believes it or not. And the fact that there's some kind of kickback for this sale is just...
I don't think there is a kickback. I honestly,
someone said.
So, I mean, that's all you can just...
So, I'm not going to tell you how I'm going to vote. Maybe we won't even vote tonight. We don't know for sure.
Okay.
But I've listened to all the comments, and it definitely impacted. I mean, I'm listening to it. I'm hearing it.
Okay, Diane?
I don't know yet. See?
Okay. Fair enough. Scott, I got a question.
Your question? I'm sorry, I didn't get you.
Okay, now give us back.
Thank you.
Okay. Scott, last question for you. How many of these has your company been involved in?
We've analyzed.
Now, how many sewer authorities, how many stewards have you been involved with in selling for municipalities?
Well, so we've helped our clients analyze probably over 50 of these across the state.
Okay.
I'd say probably 30 to maybe 30 or so percent decided not to move forward, and the other group has.
Okay, and how many of them actually did move forward, number-wise, not percentage? 22?
I don't think
22 that the PUC already passed?
I don't know off the top of my head. No, we were not involved in all 22.
Okay, just check.
Tom, you can ask Claire.
And he said,
Already know.
all right, thank you.
I'm a no.
Thank you.
There's a no, and he is not connected, so, thanks, guys. Thanks.
I wasn't having enough to do doing this homework on my people. So.
Next we have Nancy Broder.
On vacation. Who?
Hello, okay, hi. I'm
Hi.
Nancy, 26 North Conwood Lane in Etters. There's no question that I could ask you that is, or any statement that I could make that is anywhere near as eloquent as some of these past speakers. They have been fabulous. So, I guess the only one thing that I would like to hear from each of you is that part of the argument is that we haven't raised rates in 11 years to build up that fund for the future generations. Why?
Well, I personally can't answer that question. Why? Because I've only been here for a year and a half.
Well, Brett? Oh, hi.
Right here, right here.
Okay, why has the rates not been rated? Rates not been raised?
Honest answer. Give them an honest answer.
So there's a budget that we do every year, and based on our budget, profits or the income and expenses, sometimes you feel like you don't need to raise rates. So the last 12 years, we didn't raise rates because the budget has always been in a surplus. So I'll take some brunt of everything because, okay, so there's repairs that will need to be made in the future, okay? We gave a 10-year projection of what they were, and it's basically come out to like $1 million a year for 10 years. So all these projects don't need done day 1 or year 3. They might be done year 10, year 12, whatever. But so nobody has a crystal ball of what all the expenses will be. So you also you're not able to run a township department or authority at a high level for profit. It's a nonprofit, so you're not supposed to actually so if we raised rates, say, to $200 3 years ago and we made $1.5 million profit, we're not allowed to do that. We're regulated by certain percentages of profit. Otherwise, we'd be a for-profit company. So we try to actually run a tight budget. The sewer department and the township tries to run a tight budget based on what income you have coming in, what expenses you have going out, what projects you have, capital improvement projects for the near future.
The near future.
Well, I mean, I look out 0 to 5, 5 to 10, 10 to 15 on sewer system improvements and budget those accordingly, or try to. Hope I answered your question.
Am I understanding that you're not allowed to?
Well, there's only a certain amount, I don't know if James can touch on that, but there's only a certain amount that you're allowed to make profit, since we're a nonprofit company. We can't do it, we don't get reimbursed based on what we spend without raising rates, and if we have a surplus of money, like I said, there's $7 million in the bank, so I felt that, and authority board in the past, and people that do the budget have felt that we didn't need to raise the rates, or we would have at that time.
So why are we doing this now?
We're not raising rates now.
No, why are we selling now if we
Well, that's up to
He wasn't involved in that
I
decision.
don't have the answer for the township of what their needs are.
Okay, I'm done.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you. Great, she's the secretary.
Deb Kiernan?
Deb McKiernan, 15 South Ben Hogan Drive. First of all, I want to address the OCA that was referenced, the Office of Consumer Advocate, if people didn't know. I did reach out to them over a week ago and have yet to hear a response. So they're not too responsive. I want to recommend that the board tomorrow evening puts it on the agenda that we schedule another town hall meeting so that those folks that had to stand outside and had to leave because of the rain, they would be able to speak, and those that left because they have other engagements could come back and speak. Another thing, It was stated in a township meeting that the township is able to withdraw from this process at any time. So I would request that tomorrow evening, either schedule another meeting so we can talk some more, or vote to withdraw this proceeding. We are trading a one-time cash windfall for a perpetual higher sewer rate for all these private, under private ownership if we go. The Times-Herald in September 27th, 2021, talked about the Limerick Township, and their rates after their quote freeze jumped almost 90%. Their reason the township gave for selling the authority was to avoid tax increases. And I've heard that at the board meetings before. But this Times-Herald also stated, quote, any tax savings will be far outstripped by the increase in sewer rates. The Inquirer, back in September of 2018, I couldn't find any newer stats, 84% of sewer systems are owned by local governments. I heard that as an excuse to sell the sewer also is we shouldn't be in the sewer business. 48% of this township households are footing the bill for all the, quote, potential ideas that we have for the, that would benefit the entire township. Right. Why should 48% of us have the financial brunt to pay for this pie in the sky of, ooh, if we had 53 million, what could we do? Well, I have a budget and I'm looking at these increases, and right now, even if you have the subsidy rate that you quoted, we would still have an increase of $264 a quarter versus the $554.84, I'm sorry, a year. So that's still a big increase, especially for those who have fixed incomes. Also, you stated, PFM, I'm sorry, I forget your name, but 40%, you said, of the funds for the township would be increased. But for us, it's 222% increase by year 5. I know I can't handle that. Newberry Sewer Authority, or Newberry Sewer, does not have shareholders and does not pay dividends. Rather, it returns the money to customers by reinvestment and stable rates that all customers can enjoy as part of our economics of scale. I would request that you vote no.
Thank you. You, Hunter?
I'm Hunter Moyer. I live at 60 White Oak Lane. Oh, hey. Can everybody hear me? All right, so now you can hear me. I moved to the township last year in June. I moved to the township because they had low taxes and lower utility costs. But now I see that was a mistake. My wife started a petition online to stop the sale of this Newberry sewer plant. We have over 300 signatures, not including the elderly or people who can't use internet. And why didn't we pick a bigger place to have a town hall meeting other than the fire building? Could have used one of the schools to make sure everybody's voice was heard tonight. That's right. That's it.
All right, thank you. Tara, hi. Tom and Carol Steelman, 525 Stevens Road. Morgan Trimmer. All right, thank you. I'm really having trouble with this one. White Dogwood Drive, Edders. Looks like the first name starts with a D or a B and the last name with an S. I think it's a D. I think it's a D. Or maybe it's Brian, might be Brian. Just says White Dogwood Drive. Mary Schaefer. Merv, sorry, yeah.
I'm Merv Schaefer of 140 Champions Drive. And I had a request to the township to get the latest audited financial statements. They sent me 2021. So 2022, I guess, hasn't been audited yet. But in these financial statements, they show that the total charges for services was $2,747,693 for some sewage. And to meet all expenses and the debt service, there was $711,508 left. That's 26% of the total bill. So they were saying that we're not building capital, we're building capital. We got $8 million of capital. We need $1.5 million for the next 10 years. Well, we got the first 8 years, and there's a lot of government agencies. There's rural utility services. I think in Pennsylvania, they got agencies you can borrow money from. The government agencies can. I don't know where these people get their capital, but we have low chances. We get chances to borrow from other agencies. Now, when the letter that was written inviting us to this meeting, it said that one of the reasons that we're going to have this is for economies of scale. I mean, they're a lot bigger than we are, so that makes sense. But what I'm thinking of is, did we look at merging with any other sewer authorities to become bigger by going to another government agency, another sewer authority, another township, another municipality, and merging with them to get economies of scale? And
Well, I can maybe address that question. So when we send out the RFQ, we do include local authorities in the neighboring area, and no one responded. So other local municipalities, other local municipal authorities, no one responded.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Actually, the closest other municipal was one of the bidders.
Oh.
They do Fairview Township. PA Water does Fairview Township. They're probably, I would think, the closest.
Mount Wolf.
But I got to commend the frugalness of the township municipal authority now, well, the sewer authority now, because I mean, this is 2021 was the 10th year of the same rates, and we got 26% that we were able to add. So that is great. And one thing they didn't, I was curious about. Well, I asked for 2021 financial audit statements. They only gave me the sheets about the sewer in the income levels and expenses, but they didn't give me the total plant and service costs of the sewer. So I was wondering what the balance sheet value is of the, how much did we put into? Sort of, my time's up.
Well, if you feel that you didn't get all the information you requested, we can certainly get you any information you're entitled to. Thank you.
Delay the vote.
Next up is Farrah Davenport. Farrah Davenport. Alvin Feather. Alvin Feather, 25 Vinland Drive. Nick Garcia.
Hi, Nick Garcia, 55 Winterberry Lane. It seems to me that we have a sewer system that can pay for itself. And there are systems in place for doing rehab to the system when necessary with grant structures from state and federal governments. I'm in the industry. I do this kind of work. We do work on collection systems. 90% of the municipalities that I work for, it's all state or federally funded. It seems to me that you guys are looking to make a one-time sale, get a bunch of money on the backs of the, what, 50% of the people hooked up to the sewer? 48%? Not even half the township. So you're putting all that burden on less than half of the township. And the borough. Goldsboro. Does Goldsboro benefit from any of your other programs that you're going to use this money for?
No.
So they will be getting absolutely nothing out of this deal except a higher rate. That's all.
All right, thank you. Next up, Bill Fairman.
Good evening. My name is Phil Fairman. I live at 230 Juniper Drive. I've been a resident since 1981. I have a couple of just simple things to say. I'm 76 years old. I retired from the hospital in 1970. I went back to work 24 hours a week because in the last 3 years, it's suddenly become my responsibility to pay twice as much for gas, for twice as much for groceries, increased taxes, and now apparently it's become my responsibility to make sure that the investors in this water company get a return on their investment too. There's a lot of seniors in this township that are on fixed incomes that can't work. And I'm legally handicapped. They don't have that option. So what do? Wait for the township or the county to take their homes when they can't pay the increased fees? Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Next we have Kathy Ritter. Anita Assemi, 25 Ben Hogan Drive. I probably didn't say the last name right.
Anita, she said all the questions.
All right, thank you. Kathy Knox. Kathy Knox. Dawn Eamon. But- Yeah, that's it.
The irony in this presentation to my personal experience was just mind-boggling. As you mentioned, budgeting, pensions, new roof, an $8 million building, assistance for low income. I purchased my house, I think it was in '98. At that time, it had the original septic system, which was 1930s and basically non-existent. So for financing, I had to replace my septic system. I understood, I agreed. It was painful financially, but I got it. Little did I know at the time that the township was working on plans very far behind schedule for the sewer. Had the township done their job correctly at that time, the property would already have been hooked up to the sewer. I had a 2-year-old septic system, had not yet been pumped one time, not one thing wrong with it. I was forced to hook up to the sewer for another couple of grand that I did not have because I had just purchased a house and installed a septic system. Fast forward, recently I've had vehicle problems, health issues, water heater needing replaced, a long string of expensive, unexpected things. As far as budgeting, I was budgeting for a new roof, but that money literally went into the sewer. I had been contributing to a 401k. I had to greatly reduce that contribution because of inflation, gas prices, food, unexpected expenses. The most recent unexpected expense was over $2,000 to replace a faulty sewer pump because of the design of the sewer. The way my house sits, excuse the language, shit doesn't roll uphill. I had to have a pump installed as well. The gentleman that did the work for me said that had Gordon and Brown designed the pump or the sewer a little bit better and lowered the main lines, that a majority of the pumps that were required and the problems that would come from them in the future could have been avoided. So when I'm running out of money, I work longer, I work harder. I stop contributing to my pension so I can retire. My roof needs replaced, but yet my husband and I were on the roof doing our own repairs. I don't like crawling around on my roof with blackjack and everything else. But to pay for the pump that just needed to replace, I had to take out a loan because everything else has wiped me out financially. I cannot afford more for a sewer for you guys to sell it. If you need to raise the rates to maintain it, I'm all for that. But don't stiff us more. I would like to retire at some point as well, and at this point, I don't expect to ever be able to. And your votes could potentially contribute to that. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Carrie Lachin, or it's Carrie or Gary Lachin, 140 or 1045 Castle Road. You're on here again. I'm willing to let you talk with after everyone else goes.
Who?
You.
No, it's my husband, not me.
No, I mean you're after him. I'll just.
You're on there again. I'm not. I already spoke once. I designed myself.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. So it's Scott Harmon.
Okay.
Do you want back on again at the end or not?
No.
Okay.
Yep, Scott Harden, 205 Hemlock Lane,
in the Yoakumtown area. Just to start with, I did write an email to every one of the supervisors. I got one response from Mr. Wintermeyer. I had no response, no acknowledgement whatsoever from the others. I find it hard to believe that they want to sell the sewer system, and I find it super hard to believe, and I could never in good conscience ask my neighbor on the left to pay twice so that my neighbor on the right would not have to pay an increase in their taxes. And they say that it's for the good of the whole township. Well, if it's good for the whole township, then the whole township should pitch in for those expenses, not be put on the backs of just the sewer people. It's ridiculous. I can't believe you could even contemplate that. The other thing is, you're getting an overvaluation. You're getting a $52 million valuation on here versus a 30. They gave the 30 option. You never heard the supervisors or the salesman over here say that they even considered the $30,000. They want the cash, right? So it's a cash grab, and it's free money that they can take, and it's going to cost us. So our rates will go up 2 to 3 times to pay for that. So just keep that in mind. It's $53 million, and he's going to have to get his money back out of that. It's coming out of our backs, not the rest of your taxpayers, just our backs.
Thank you. Yeah. I'm having trouble with this one too. I'm looking like Jeff Molt. 2270 Old Trail Road. I think it's Jeff. World Truth Acre?
Hello, Will Toothaker, 55 Water Street, and I'm a former Newberry Township supervisor, just so everybody knows. One thing I'd like to, or a couple things I'd like to put out here tonight. Last I looked, the Newberry Township General Fund budget was about $5 million. This asset, the sewer plant, everything's worth $53 million. I don't know that there's any single, I can't imagine there's any single asset that's worth this much money to the township. So just kind of comparing this, for $53 million, you guys are making a decision on like 10 years worth of what the general fund budget would be with this decision. I think that a decision of this magnitude should be on the ballot in November.
All right, thank you. Joe Manta. Joe Manta. Gary Jankovic.
I also wrote a letter to the board, got one acknowledgement from Mr. Wintermeyer. Thank you for that. I attended the board meeting a month ago and got the handout that PDM or PFM had put together that had all the different proposals that were offered up. And it was fascinating to me because York's was so much better than their competition. They were offering way more money and charging less projected into the future for the subscribers. I thought, wow, this isn't even a competition, so it's not surprising that York is here today and the others are not. But it does draw in the question, are those numbers, those projected numbers, exactly how solid are they? Because that's not a commitment. That's just simply some numbers that are thrown at us, and with the hope, of course, of appeasing the people to some degree that's possible. So it's not a commitment. It's not like, what in effect we're getting here is we're taking out a loan, or the township is taking out a loan, and it's going to be paid back by the 48% that are subscribers to this thing, plus the unfortunate ones that in the future may be forced to sign on to this thing. I know there are plans at the moment, but they didn't say there wouldn't be plans. It just says right now there are no plans. So someday in the future, you may be asked to sign up, even if you aren't there right now. But nonetheless, a little less than 50% is footing the bill for all of this grand stuff that's proposed, I guess, in the future by the board, the wonderful things they're going to create for us all. And we're going to pay for that. This 48% is paying for that. And the interest rates are flexible. You say the PUC is going to control them. But the PUC, as one of the previous commenters pointed out, really doesn't work for us. The PUC really works for the industry. Yeah? So we're going to take a schooling on this, and you got to wonder why this even got any traction in the first place. As far as I know, we have 5 members here. 1 is opposed to this, and the other 4, which didn't acknowledge my letter and didn't acknowledge Scott Harmon's letter, or probably any of them, they appear to be in favor of this stupid idea. This is absurd. We got a functioning facility that serves the residents of this township very, very well, exceedingly well, and you want to get rid of that? What's going through your heads? There must be some personal benefit that you're going to get from this to even entertain something that's so obviously stupid. Because these guys are not in it, York, to give us some favor or need. They're here to make money. And right now we have a nonprofit that works, and they're actually entertaining this ridiculous nonsense. So I'd like you guys, you really should talk up about what your personal stake is in this thing, because somebody's getting flush out of this deal in some way or another. And incidentally, this 20,000 square foot grand palace that's been somehow pushed through, I guess, and is under construction, who the hell wanted that in this group, right, or of the citizens here? I mean, this is ridiculous to bring on something huge that we can't afford. This is not Greenwich, Connecticut, okay? So we should be actually living appropriate to the amount of money that the citizens actually have. In other words, so stop this nonsense. This is ridiculous. Done for me.
Thank you. Paul Deal.
I'll pay up and it'll be.
All right. Stephen Toomey.
Steve Toomey, 140 Craigmore, York Haven. I had this long speech written out, but Mr. Hand stole my thunder about the capital investments. So it does sound like that we have, we have a plan that Brett has worked on to upgrade our systems, and we have a lot of money in the bank, but we haven't spent it. As a government employee, that's bad. I know that's bad. You're supposed to spend every dime you get, and ask for more.
There you go.
But, being an engineer for 35 years in planning, engineering, managing, and maintaining systems, I know that the first thing you got to do is a comprehensive inventory and condition assessment of your entire condition every 4 to 5 years. Based on that assessment, you prioritize your replacement schedule. Some items you'll have to replace based on their mean time to failure, such as a pump. Yours went out a little early. But you have to do that. There must pay bills. Then you budget every year or capital improvements. Mr. Hand said 1%. They only spend 1%. I don't think, based on our condition, we're going to get away with 1%. It's probably going to be more. The other thing is you need to hire a consulting engineer who is intimate with civil engineer that's intimate with sewer utilities in Pennsylvania specifically, because that's who we have to follow. Consult them quarterly. It's worth the money you're going to pay. Consult them quarterly on the upcoming changes in regulations and things that will impact Newbury Township. They're the experts. Based on that, then you can go back and revise your plan for your capital investments. These things have to be done. But on the opposite side, you have a company that's coming in, they're in here to make money. That's their whole deal. But as someone else stated, it's in essence a loan, because they're gonna capitalize that loan. They're gonna get that money back out of us one way or another. And the way is that they're gonna increase the rates. And why are they gonna do that? Because they can. And they're gonna go to the PUC and ask for rate increases. And it'll be justified. They'll spend money. They'll spend an appropriate amount of money to upgrade our facilities. They'll put new pumps in. They'll put backup generators at every site, because that's expected. Do they have to? Are we economizing by keeping mobile generators? We sure are. We're keeping costs down. Does it make sense? Sure it does. Maybe some of the sites have to have installed generators based on the amount that flows in. But I am in opposition to the sale, and I definitely think that we could do the management in-house, but it is hard work and it requires a lot of hard work to do it right. But we shouldn't shirk it. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, can I just make one comment? I'm sorry. Can I just make, yeah. Was it Mr. Timmy or? Toomey. Mr. Toomey, great comments, appreciate that. Just one clarification, I did say 1%, but that's 1% of our assets, not 1% investment. So 1% of every foot of pipe and the pumps and those types of things. Okay. Next, Tina Wise. I'm sorry, that's really just not necessary.
I'm Tina, and I'm gonna sit, I'm sorry, but just because I've been sitting so long, it's gonna be hard to get up. But what I wanted to say is, I've lived in the township for 40 years. I support our police department. I don't know that I support the building that you're building, but I do support our police department. A year ago, I sat and I listened to this board make a decision that cost this township a whole lot of money. And I'm not going to go into that today. But they made that decision that cost us a lot of money. And I hope that you are really listening tonight, because I don't think anybody here has made a comment in favor of selling the sewer. And I worked for the Commonwealth for 20 years. And I was very involved when the Commonwealth wanted to sell their assets. And I don't know how many people remember that, but the Pennsylvania Lottery, the Liquor Control Board, and third-party liability, which I worked for. And we brought in $100 million a year, and they wanted to sell us. And there's only one reason they do that, and that's because of a huge windfall up front.
Yep, there you go.
For a complete loss on the back end. Yep, that's right. And I worked really, really hard against that, and I fought against it for 3 years. And the Commonwealth finally came to the conclusion that selling these assets were not to their benefit. And they backed out of it. And I hope you guys are listening tonight, because you need to back out of this, and you need to back out of it soon. Because this is affecting only part of us, and 4 of you making the decision, and I know one of you is making the right decision, but 4 of you making this decision aren't even affected by this sale. Right. And that's wrong.
Yeah. Right.
You work for us, So show us that.
Thank you. Next, we have Ron Combs for Lamb.
I'll give up my time to anybody else that has something else to say. Everything else pretty much got covered.
Yep, John's gonna take your time.
At what time is the meeting tomorrow?
6.
And where is it at? There's still people that have visitor. Yeah, we're not gonna finish.
It's at the township building.
Thank you. When I spoke to the sales rep from PFM, he stated that the projected numbers, if we do not sell the sewer based on 5%.
Thank you. We wanted.
Good evening, David Parsons, 201 Eel Drive. And, you hear things about rates and increase and all this stuff. I did a spreadsheet on the 4 proposals. And, actually, Mr. Ann, I'm glad you're here. Okay. PA American Water. The reason, this is something that has not been told to anybody. These bids are effective June 1st to July 3rd next week, unless they both parties want to extend. No, this was not said at all tonight. So what you have to do is you have to go online, you look up the budgets and the proposals. PA American Water, page 4, note number 7, effective page 13 would start by December 31st, 24. Page 14 of the bid. They offer H2O help to pay grants up to $500 per year. Aqua on page 8, note 7, effective June 1st to July 3rd. York Water Company, incorporated February 23rd, 1816. Page 8, note 7, effective June 1st to July 3rd. The mistake you made was on page 16, you have the word monthly instead of quarterly.
Yeah.
So instead of, for years 1 and 2, monthly, you have 596. So, you have to change the word to quarterly. 596 times 12 is about $7,200. So that's a mistake. I'm surprised nobody picked up on it. You have, okay, we'll change. You have supervisor, you have the attorney. And also, the other mistake was, on page 18, same thing. Years 1 and 2, 596 monthly. Years 3, 4, and 5, 855, 20 monthly. Years 6, 7, 8, 983 monthly. Years 9 and 10, 1131 monthly. So if this was signed, this is a legal document. We're going to pay this monthly, not quarterly. And the paper that Mr. Scheer, sometimes I feel like talking to Mr. Scheer, he knows a lot, but he just doesn't give the information you want unless you ask the question. And his job is to sell the thing. Okay, so back to my spreadsheet. So I did it for all the bids. This thing's driving crazy. Okay. York Water Company, bid number 1. And that was my question too. What's the payback period? Because you're talking about $53 million, but there are fees involved. See, I attend most of the supervisor meetings, and people know me. I ask questions. I don't give them a hard time because they really do they're decent people. They really are. They mean well, but I think it's a mistake to go through with this. And you really shouldn't give them a hard time. Imagine, and I'm looking at a former supervisor, Grant Cook, a couple other people, and I know what they're thinking. I'm glad I'm not sitting there tonight. So anyway, this was given to me in January of last year. So far, it's only cost us $7,500. That's it. But there's a contingent fee of $50,000. This no matter what bid. 1.45% of the purchase price. Local and special legal counsel is $170,000. Consulting engineer $40,000. Seller utility valuation expert $35,000. and Act 12, 20,000. So when you do the math, on a $53 million bid, net proceeds are $51,909. But more importantly for us, just want to remember, $5,996. What we do is we pay $149.90 per quarter for the next 10 years. Do the math, it's just under $6,000. The first bid, $53 million from York Water Company, of same 10 years, be $11,659. This is the $53 million bid. The assuming allocation comes out to $10,404, so it's still higher. Because you hear all these rates, but do actual math. York Water Company bid 2, full cost $89.70, and also assuming allocation, same thing. PA American Water, which I think should have been here, and also Aqua should have been here. They had the worst rates, $12,232. That's PA American. Aqua, $12,908, $11,014. But then the percentages are really crazy too. For example, York Water Company, Mr. Hanson here. In 2026, the rate remained the same, $149.90 for 24 and 25. Then it increases 93.1% for $1150.88 per year. 3 more years later, 15%, 3 more years, another 15%. Assuming allocation, 2026 goes to 50% in 3 years. 3 years later, 30%, 31. It's very similar. If you look at York Water Company, bid 2, 43.5%. This is never told to you. You got to create your own spreadsheet because you got to do your homework. You go online, and it's all on the website. I just copy from the website. You look at the budget, you look at the information. It's all there. Maybe not for everybody, but maybe you get help. PA American Water, 143% after a couple of years. But the worst one, well, maybe not the worst one, Aqua, after 3 years, it goes 147%. Full cost service, assuming allocations, 105%. Then every single year, 2028 through 33, it goes, this is every single year, 2.4 to 2.6% per year. So that's what it comes out. It's crazy. And I happen to have a copy of the budget with me. And up until a couple of years ago, the township, I think one of the reasons they thought they wanted to sell the sewer authority because they're only getting $75,000 per year. They call that this line item 380.200, sewer reimbursement management fee, $105,000. Prior to that was $75,000. And I think one of the supervisors said, you know what, we can probably get another $30,000. So that became It was calculated. Pardon me? It was calculated. Calculated, okay. So that became effective. And then, now this is coming from the budget. Total income, about $2.5 million beginning balance. So total funds available, about $8.5 million. That's the budget amount. And then, so there is money. There is money, in the sewer authority.
Dave, are you getting close? You're way over time, but are you getting close?
Sorry about that. That's what, but also I want to, thank Brent because, he's doing such good. One thing I want to ask you though, Brent, is when I looked at the, what is it? $900,000 plus interest of $100,000. Oh, cash flows, page 10. Payment principal, $900,000. Interest payment, $100,409. What's that for? The $900,000.
That's 2 bonds that we own.
I'm going to give it to Jane. She's the comptroller. It's about the bonds, so she knows more about the financial part of it.
Dave, there's actually 2 bonds that need to be retired, okay, that they've been paying down. So That's what they're doing. They're retiring the debt, paying down the debt.
And then 100,000 interest.
That's the interest. Yes, correct.
And well, one last thing, I'm against the sale, and thank you for your time.
All right, thanks, Dave.
Thank you. John Williams, 185 Hemlock Lane. When you buy a house, that's a major commitment, as many as 30 years till it's paid for. A lot of people stay even more. This decision that you're gonna make tomorrow, some of you won't be, including me, maybe on this earth, and people will still be, I guess, reaping the benefit or consequence of your decision. We have $7 million accrued from the sewer, $600,000 a year coming in. Board members, can you take a look at it's slide 14 on the color handouts?
We don't have a copy of that.
Oh, you don't have it? Okay. Here. Maxine, the chart on the very bottom, what's the projected rate for sewer wages for residents in 2023?
2023, 149.
And what is it in 2033?
215.
Okay, and that's a lot different than what's been discussed. And I get it, we're eliminating at a risk. We're throwing out something that has been profitable for many, many years. And for me and everybody in this room, if you make a bad decision and vote yes tomorrow, you better have a plan that looks at this number as well as the rate of inflation. Because right now, there's absolutely no reason. And again, if you want to cover some other expenses, I get it. Do not put the burden on our shoulders. You give us a 30-year, and I don't care if we pay the township and you're just going to have to stay involved. We pay the 149 and the 149, 151, and the township foots the difference. Doesn't matter. But to me, there's no other way. If you vote yes and you don't address this, I can't believe that PFM didn't say, hey, at this meeting, you ought to be talking to your taxpayers that are hooked up to sewer about how we're going to level this. Not, oh, here's what it'll be. That just blows my mind. And if you don't address that in a 30-year plan, I view that as stealing from me and everyone in this room that's hooked up to sewer for 30 years.
Next we have Carleen Fry.
Hi, I'm Carleen Fry. I live at 1925 York Haven Road. I'm actually going to start off by reading from the Public Utility Commission website. In the case of utilities owned and operated by municipalities, city, borough, or township, the Public Utility Commission does not have jurisdiction unless a municipality is serving customers who reside outside of its corporate boundaries. The Commission maintains jurisdiction over the rates and service to these outside customers. So what I'm understanding from that, and that's directly from their website, is that the PUC cannot tell you guys what to charge us as long as we maintain control over our sewer. They can only tell York Water Company what to charge us if we sell. Is that correct? Am I understanding that correctly? Okay, so That sounds good to me. Let's not sell. Okay. Also, I'm also here representing my parents who couldn't be here tonight. They own a rental property in the township. They currently have a tenant and in the past have had tenants who live on a fixed income. They intentionally keep their rental rates very low, like way below market value, but they maintain a really nice property so that they can keep these tenants who otherwise wouldn't be able to afford a place to live, right? If you come through, if you sell this sewage, this is ridiculous. They're gonna lose these tenants. Like, where are these people gonna go, okay? This is stupid. And frankly, that's on you guys. That's not on my parents. This breaks my parents' heart that they are facing the possibility of having to turn these people away. Okay, also, when there are this many people, and it's sad that it's thinned out this much, but when there are this many people who show up, who you, Mr. Harkins, rightly acknowledged at the start of the meeting that you know the majority are opposed to this, then why are you not at least putting this to a referendum vote? And I'm not the first person who's brought this up. So why are you not at least putting it to a referendum vote? I posit that it's because you know that it would not pass. It has waited this long. It can wait a few more months. Also, last point, you can stop this process right now at no fault. If you proceed against the will of the people that you work for, I sincerely hope that these people that you supposedly represent come together to bring a class action lawsuit to stop this process.
Thank you. Jason Christian? Jason Christine. Sorry.
I'm the Chris Tyne.
I stand today as a resident here to address the proposed sale of the profitable sewer authority. I believe it is our duty to do that, voice our opposition, to bring your attention to the potential consequences of such a decision. First and foremost, I would like to emphasize the importance of fiscal responsibility, which has so far been proven not to be done. It is your responsibility to ensure the taxpayer funds are managed wisely and efficiently. I understand there have been self-imposed financial challenges, such as overspending on the Newbury Township Police Department building, but selling our sewer authority should not be the solution to cover these expenses in an effort not to raise taxes to make yourself look good for elections. Because this is really an indirect tax on the people that are paying for the sewers, that are on the sewer. While it may seem tempting to avoid immediate tax increases, we must consider the long-term implications of the sale. By relinquishing control of our sewer authority to a private company, we surrender our ability to influence rates and policies that directly impact the residents of Newbury Township. You must ask yourselves, is it worth trading short-term relief for long-term financial hardships for our community, especially one that we will have no say in the future? At least if our taxes are raised, we have the right and duty to ensure people are elected to address those issues. And I'm sure after tonight, we're going to make sure of that at the next election. Furthermore, I want to express my concerns about the lack of long-term planning in this decision. Our sewer system is a vital utility that affects a lot of residents. It is not a decision to be taken lightly. As far as far-reaching consequences for generations to come, we must carefully consider alternative solutions and engage in comprehensive planning to address our financial challenges without compromising our community's well-being. I implore you, as our elected representatives, to take these concerns into serious consideration. As supervisors, you have been entrusted with the responsibility to make decisions that benefit the community as a whole, not just in the short term, but in the long term as well. I urge you to carefully examine the potential rate increases and their impact on the hardworking families of Newbury Township and neighboring communities the sewer authority serves. I think about the residents who are already struggling to make ends meet, and the burden that significant increase in sewer bills will place on them, especially those on fixed incomes. A potential increase of 3 times the amount we are currently paying will hurt families and potentially push people out of the township to look for more affordable solutions, thus reducing our tax base, which can cause further budget issues and probably more taxes. I don't know about anybody else, but $1,000 more is going to cause me to think about my kids and what activities they're going to be doing. Instead, I may have to pick up another job and say, you either can do it, or I'm going to be forced to miss your events because I'm going to be working to make sure that I'm paying for the sewer. One last thing. I urge you not to sell the sewer authority. Let's come together to engage in meaningful, transparent discussions and find a solution that's in the best interest for our community. Thanks for your attention, and I trust that you will take our concerns and the tremendous show of support for not selling the sewer authority and not selling the people that you serve out.
Thank you. I'm at the end of the list. Did I miss anyone that was signed up?
Somebody back here? Yeah.
Sorry about that.
Okay. My name starts with a J too, and it ends with a Harmon, so.
Oh, well, maybe that's
It's
why.
okay.
It looked like the same writing.
Well, I just kind of scribbled it on there. I didn't come expecting to speak tonight.
Well, maybe
So,
you were probably signed up. When I called you first, it was probably you
It's
because
okay.
of the same writing for you and your husband.
It's all right.
Yeah, my husband wrote me on.
I'm Jordan. Cragmore Road in York Haven.
Take the microphone.
I might- I don't have much to say. A lot has already been said, and I thank you guys for hearing us out. And I hope you are actually hearing us, and this isn't just going in one ear and out the other, because it really means a lot to us. This living right now is very, very expensive. It costs me $150 a week for diapers and formula for a baby, and I want to have more of those, you know? And it's hard, the feasibility of that with more added money coming onto that is hard to fathom. So, I did have a question, and this may have just been hearsay, but something to do with the well water getting metered? Am I wrong in this? Does that tie into the septic system at all?
No, well, I think I can answer that. So that comment was, like, all these rates are based on a flat rate, so you don't, no matter how much water you use. That comment was if you feel you're not using a lot of water, you would have the ability to request a meter, so you would pay a less rate for the actual usage of the water. Like,
Based off 4,000 gallons.
yeah, it's based off 4,000 gallons. So if you felt you used less than 4,000 gallons a quarter, or based on a month, then you could request to have a meter installed and pay on a reduced rate.
Is somebody gonna come, like, try to come through and meter my?
No one's going to make you put a meter on. That's something you would request if you feel.
Why
you're
would I
using-
request that though?
There you go.
If you felt, so those rates are based on the usage of 4,000 gallons a month
How? Okay.
per household. So if you feel you're only using 1,000 gallons a month and you feel you could save money and only pay for 1,000 gallons a month versus the 4,000 that the rates are based on, you could request a meter. You would pay a lesser rate.
Who pays for the?
Well, you'd have to pay for the meter yourself, I think. Yeah. So
So a flat rate is going to be varied by my well water?
a flat rate isn't varied
But it
by,
can get lessened if I get a meter on my well and say that I'm using less than what I'm actually.
if you are actually using less than 4,000
But if
gallons.
you use more, you're gonna get charged more.
Yeah,
Is that correct?
that's true,
So
yes.
is everyone gonna pay the same rate, or is it gonna be based off your water meter bill?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
Is everyone gonna pay a flat rate, or is it gonna be based, is your sewer bill gonna be based off your water bill?
It's a flat rate just like it is now. That's correct, right?
That's ridiculous.
Okay, so I guess, a lot has been said tonight. Emotions are high, but When you have an asset, as a person or as an employer, when you have an asset, do you just sell it off to the highest bidder, or do you invest in that asset so that it can make you more money and so that it can benefit you and your community? I mean, what other asset do we have in this community that's bigger than this? So why not, excuse me, I'm a little like confused. Why not invest in your community and the economic growth of what we already have? Why not build off of the system that we already have?
Me personally speaking, I'm not speaking for anyone else. Please let me finish my statement. I felt that this was in the best interest of the community. I am hearing everything that everyone's saying, but that's my honest answer to you.
I mean, you guys are sitting before us because we elected you to look out for our best interest as a community. Do you understand why we feel a little betrayed and confused?
I understand everyone's frustration, I do.
Okay. Just please take it into consideration when you're taking this vote. You know, maybe look into some more grants, do a little more homework. There are other avenues. This is not the only way. So why are all of our eggs in just this one basket?
Thank you.
Thank you. Can I just hand this to the next person?
I think we're done. So, just do we need a motion to adjourn, or we can, I'll just, what? Sure.
Only because I found out I won't be able to attend the meeting tomorrow night. So I guess my name's Tina McDade. I live in Shelley's Riverview, 453 Shelley's Lane. So are we trying to sell the sewer system to pay for this police station?
Yes.
No, that was not the basis of this. That's not how this came up at all.
Okay, so I'm going to elaborate on that again because I won't be able to make it tomorrow night. First, I thought the police station was supposed to be around $3 million. Then it went up to $5 million. Now it's $8 million? So why did we not have these damn ass warehouses pay taxes, give money to the township, but you're taking it from us?
No one wants more warehouses.
But we got two in
They had to get here somehow. So why could we not get millions out of them and that police station would already be paid for?
I can't answer that. I wasn't here when the warehouses were.
Where are the people?
All right, come on up.
Is this on? Yeah. My name is Stephen Witter, 165 Wilson Road. I'm going to go from left to right. I'm sorry I didn't catch this gentleman's name here, but candidly, I don't trust you. The more you spoke, the less I trust you. Because every time you were given a simple yes and no answer, you would start, BSing around it, all right? And this gentleman as well, give an answer, yes, if, no, if, maybe, it's not in, no. I like concrete things, and, maybe it's because I deal in a court of law that you like yes and no's and, define answers. Now I want to appeal to the actual township supervisors. Each of you, I remember distinctly when I went to vote, approached me and my wife asking for your support, telling me how much you want to change things for the good and how you want to represent us. I'm not going to elaborate. Everyone else has covered everything else, so I'm just going to focus on that. You approached us. You wanted our vote. You wanted me to put my confidence in you. You wanted me to put our trust in you.
okay? Some of you even attend churches for a while and did for a while so that you could sort of, buddy up with people in churches. I remember that quite clearly. So, here's the bottom line. For the record, I oppose this strongly. It makes no logical sense, and it doesn't add up. And under scrutiny, I don't think you can make the case for it. He's going to make it because he's making good money. And anybody that knows anything about accounting and numbers can fix the books, can run the books, and make it look like what they want to. Ask any good accountant that's worth their salt, you can slant it and make it look like whatever you want. All right? So at minimum, if you truly care about the people who you ask on those voting days to vote for you, and you care about your neighbors and friends here, okay, that you say you care about, at minimum, postpone this, board it for a while, investigate it more. The world will not stop tomorrow if you vote no and postpone this, okay? I will say this, I have a sneaking feeling that if this goes through, this will be a pivotal moment in the history of Newberry Township. And you five happen to be the ones on the supervisory board. And each of you came to my wife and I and asked us for your vote. I am what they call a super voter. I won't forget. I've been in the township since 1978, okay? So, I think you've heard the voices tonight. Don't give a silent ear to it.
Thank you.
Meeting adjourned.